connected to iPhone.
Spirit pressure. The inside of the rover has 1 atmosphere. The oxygen tanks are on the inside. Less pressure differential to deal with. Why does that matter? It means I can bring along other oxygen tanks and equalize them with the rover's tanks without having to do an EVA. So today, I detached one of the HAB's 2 25-liter liquid oxygen tanks and brought it into the rover. According to NASA, a human needs 588 liters of oxygen per day to live. Compressed liquid O2 is about 1,000 times as dense as gaseous O2 in a comfortable atmosphere. Long story short, with the HAB tank, I have enough O2 to last 49 days. That'll be plenty. Sirius 4 will be a 20-day trip. That may seem a bit long, but I have a specific goal in mind. Besides, my trip to Ares 4 will be at least 40 days. This is a good scale model. While I'm away, the HAB can take care of itself, but the potatoes are an issue. I'll saturate the ground with most of the water I have. Then I'll deactivate the atmospheric regulator so it doesn't pull water out of the air. It'll be humid as hell, and water will condense on every surface. That'll keep the potatoes well watered while I'm away. A bigger problem is CO2. The potatoes need to breathe. I know what you're thinking. Mark, old chap, you produce carbon dioxide. It's all part of the majestic circle of nature. The problem is, where will I put it? Sure, I exhale CO2 with every breath, but I don't have any way to store it. I could turn off the oxygenator and atmospheric regulator and just fill the HAB with my breath over time, but CO2 is deadly to me. I need to release a bunch at once and run away. Remember the MAV fuel plant? It collects CO2 from the Martian atmosphere. A 10-liter tank of compressed liquid CO2 vented into the HAB will be enough CO2 to do the trick. That'll take less than a day to create. So that's everything. Once I vent the CO2 into the HAB, I'll turn off the atmospheric regulator and oxygenator, dump a ton of water on the crops, and head out. Sirius 4. A huge step forward in my rover research. And I can start tomorrow. Chapter 8. Hello, and thank you for joining us, Kathy Warner said to the camera. Today on CNN's Mark Wa... material to keep its base flat. The internal pressure was a vital part of its support. Without it...
This is Audible.
Good-natured man, usually cheerful, with a great sense of humor. He's quick with care about it, because it has a lot of moving parts. If I establish a link with NASA, I can talk to them by holding a page of text up, he said, quickly walking out. Mindy stammered, following after. Where are we going? down the numbers. Keystrokes, she brought up another file. The Habs at 31.2 degrees north, 28.5 degrees west. What do you see? Venkat finished taking down the numbers. Come with me, he said, quickly walking out. Mindy stammered, following after. Where are we going? Satcon break room, Venkat said. You guys still have that map of Mars on the wall? Sure, Mindy said, but it's just a poster from the gift shop. I've got high-quality digital maps on my computer. Nope, I can't draw on those, he said. Then, rounding the corner to the break room, he pointed to the Mars map on the wall. I can draw on that. The break room was empty, save for a computer technician sipping a cup of coffee. He looked up in alarm as Venkat and Mindy stormed in. Good. It has latitude and longitude lines, Venkat said. Looking at his post-it, then sliding his finger along the map, he drew an X. That's the Hab, he said. Hey, the technician said. Are you drawing on our poster? I'll buy you a new one, Venkat said without looking back. Then he drew another X. That's his current location. Get me a ruler. Mindy looked left and right. Seeing no ruler, she grabbed the technician's notebook. Hey, the technician protested. Using the notebook as a straight edge, Venkat drew a line from the Hab to Mark's location and beyond, then took a step back. Yep, that's where he's going, Venkat said excitedly. Oh, Mindy said. The line passed through the exact center of a bright yellow dot printed on the map. Pathfinder, Mindy said. He's going to Pathfinder. Yep, Venkat said. Now we're getting somewhere. It's like 800 kilometers from him. He can get there and back with supplies on hand. And bring Pathfinder and Sojourner rover back with him, Mindy added. Venkat pulled out his cell phone. We lost contact with Pathfinder in 1997. If he can get it online again, we can communicate. It might just need the solar cells cleaned. Even if it's got a bigger problem, he's an engineer. Dialing, he added, fixing things is his job. Smiling for what felt like the first time in weeks, he held the phone to his ear and awaited a response. Bruce, it's Venkat. Everything just changed. Watney's headed for Pathfinder. Yeah, I know, right? Dig up everyone who was on that project and get them to JPL now. I'll catch the next flight. Hanging up, he grinned at the map. Mark, you sneaky, clever son of a bitch. Chapter 9. Log entry. Sol 79. It's the evening of my 8th day on the road. Series 4 has been a success so far. I've fallen into a routine. Every morning I wake up at dawn. First thing I do is check oxygen and CO2 levels. Then I eat a breakfast pack and drink a cup of water. After that, I brush my teeth using as little water as possible and shave with an electric razor. The rover has no toilet. We were expected to use our suit's reclamation systems for that, but they aren't designed to hold 20 days worth of output. My morning piss goes in a resealable plastic box. When I open it, the rover reeks like a truck stop men's room. I could take it outside and let it boil off, but I worked hard to make that water, and the last thing I'm going to do is waste it. I'll feed it to the water reclaimer when I get back. Even more precious is my manure. It's critical to the potato farm, and I'm the only source on Mars. Fortunately, when you spend a lot of time in space, you learn how to shit in a bag. And if you think things are bad after opening the piss box, imagine the smell after I drop anchor. After I'm done with that lovely routine, I go outside and collect the solar cells. Why didn't I do it the previous night? Because trying to dismantle and stack solar cells in total darkness isn't fun. I learned that the hard way. After securing the cells, I come back in, turn on some shitty 70s music, and start driving. I putter along at 25 kilometers per hour, the rover's top speed. It's comfortable inside. I wear hastily made cutoffs and a thin shirt while the RTG bakes the interior. When it gets too hot, I detach the insulation duct tape to the hull. When it gets too cold, I tape it back up. I can go almost 2 hours before the first battery runs out. I do a quick EVA to swap cables, then I'm back at the wheel for the second half of the day's drive. The terrain is very flat. The undercarriage of the rover is taller than any of the rocks around here, and the hills are gently sloping affairs, smoothed by eons of sandstorms. When the other battery runs out, it's time for another EVA. I pulled the solar cells off the roof and laid them on the ground. For the first few sols, I lined them up in a row. Now I plop them wherever, trying to keep them close to the rover out of sheer laziness. Then comes the incredibly dull part of my day. I sit around for 12 hours with nothing to do, and I'm getting sick of this rover. The inside's the size of a van. That may seem like plenty of room, but try being trapped in a van for 8 days. I look forward to tending my potato farm in the wide open space of the hab. I'm nostalgic for the hab. How fucked up is that? I have shitty 70s TV to watch and a bunch of Poirot novels to read, but mostly I spend my time thinking about getting to Ares 4. I'll have to do it someday. How the hell am I going to survive a 3,200-kilometer trip in this thing? It'll probably take 50 days. I'll need the water reclaimer and the oxygenator, maybe some of the hab's main batteries, then a bunch more solar cells to charge everything. Where will I put it all? These thoughts pester me throughout the long, boring days. Eventually, it gets dark and I get tired. I lie among the food packs, water tanks, extra O2 tank, piles of CO2 filters, box of pee, bags of shit, and personal items. I have a bunch of crew jumpsuits to serve as bedding, along with my blanket and pillow. Basically, I sleep in a pile of junk every night. Speaking of sleep, good night. Log entry. Sol 80. By my reckoning, I'm about 100 kilometers from Pathfinder. Technically, it's Carl Sagan Memorial Station, but with all due respect to Carl, I can call it whatever the hell I want. I'm the king of Mars. As I mentioned, it's been a long, boring drive, and I'm still on the outward leg. But hey, I'm an astronaut. Long-ass trips are my business. Navigation is tricky. The hab's nav beacon only reaches 40 kilometers, so it's useless to me out here. I knew that'd be an issue when I was planning this little road trip, so I came up with a brilliant plan that didn't work. The computer has detailed maps, so I figured I could navigate by landmarks. I was wrong. Turns out you can't navigate by landmarks if you can't find any goddamned landmarks. Our landing site is at the delta of a long-gone river. NASA chose it because if there are any microscopic fossils to be had, it's a good place to look. Also, the water would have dragged oil samples from thousands of kilometers away. With some digging, we could get a broad geological history. That's great for science, but it means the hab's in a featureless wasteland. I considered making a compass. The rover has plenty of electricity, and the med kit has a needle. Only one problem. Mars doesn't have a magnetic field. So I navigate by Phobos. It whips around Mars so fast it actually rises and sets twice a day, running west to east. It isn't the most accurate system, but it works. Things got easier on Sol 75. I reached a valley with a rise to the west. It had flat ground for easy driving, and I just needed to follow the edge of the hills. I named it Lewis Valley, after our fearless leader. She'd love it there, geology nerd that she is. 3 sols later, Lewis Valley opened into a wide plain, so again, I was left without references and relied on Phobos to guide me. There's probably symbolism there. Phobos is the god of fear, and I'm letting it be my guide. Not a good sign. But today, my luck finally changed. After 2 sols wandering the desert, I found something to navigate by. It was a 5-kilometer crater, so small it didn't even have a listed name. But it was on the maps, so to me it was the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Once I had it in sight, I knew exactly where I was. I'm camped near it now, as a matter of fact. I'm finally through the blank areas of the map. Tomorrow I'll have the lighthouse to navigate by and Hamelin Crater later on. I'm in good shape. Now, on to my next task. Sitting around with nothing to do for 12 hours. I better get started. Log entry. Sol 81. Almost made it to Pathfinder today, but I ran out of juice. Just another 22 kilometers to go. An unremarkable drive. Navigation wasn't a problem. As the lighthouse receded into the distance, the rim of Hamelin Crater came into view. I left Acidalia Planitia behind a long time ago. I'm well into Ares Vallis now. The desert plains are giving way to bumpier terrain, strewn with ejecta that never got buried by sand. It makes driving a chore. I have to pay more attention. Up till now, I've been driving right over the rock-strewn landscape, but as I travel farther south, the rocks are getting bigger and more plentiful. I have to go around some of them or risk damage to my suspension. The good news is I don't have to do it for long. Once I get to Pathfinder, I can turn around and go the other way. The weather's been very good. No discernible wind, no storms. I think I got lucky there. There's a good chance my rover tracks from the past few sols are intact. I should be able to get back to Lewis Valley just by following them. After setting up the solar panels today, I went for a little walk. I never left sight of the rover. The last thing I want to do is get lost on foot. But I couldn't stomach crawling back into that cramped, smelly rat's nest. Not right away. It's a strange feeling. Everywhere I go, I'm the first. Step outside the rover, first guy ever to be there. Climb a hill, first guy to climb that hill. Kick a rock, that rock hadn't moved in a million years. I'm the first guy to drive long distance on Mars, the first guy to spend more than 31 sols on Mars, the first guy to grow crops on Mars. First. I wasn't expecting to be first at anything. I was the 5th crewman out of the MDV when we landed, making me the 17th person to set foot on Mars. The egress order had been determined years earlier. A month before launch, we all got tattoos of our Mars numbers. Johansson almost refused to get her 15 because she was afraid it would hurt. Here's a woman who had survived the centrifuge, the vomit comet, hard landing drills, and 10K runs. A woman who fixed a simulated MDV computer failure while being spun around upside down. But she was afraid of a tattoo needle. Man, I miss those guys. Jesus Christ, I'd give anything for a 5-minute conversation with anyone. Anyone, anywhere, about anything. I'm the first person to be alone on an entire planet. Okay, enough moping. I am having a conversation with someone, whoever reads this log. It's a bit one-sided, but it'll have to do. I might die, but damn it, someone will know what I had to say. And the whole point of this trip is to get a radio. I could be reconnected with mankind before I even die. So here's another first. Tomorrow, I'll be the first person to recover a Mars probe. Log entry. Sol 82. Victory. I found it. I knew I was in the right area when I spotted Twin Peaks in the distance. The 2 small hills are under a kilometer from the landing site. Even better, they were on the far side of the site. All I had to do was aim for them until I found the lander. And there it was, right where it was supposed to be. I excitedly stumbled out and rushed to the site. Pathfinder's final stage of descent was a balloon-covered tetrahedron. The balloons absorbed the impact of landing. Once it came to rest, they deflated, and the tetrahedron unfolded to reveal the probe. It's actually 2 separate components, the lander itself and the Sojourner rover. The lander was immobile, while Sojourner wandered around and got a good look at the local rocks. I'm taking both back with me, but the important part is the lander. That's the part that can communicate with Earth. I can't explain how happy I was to find it. It was a lot of work to get here, and I'd succeeded. The lander was half buried. With some quick and careful digging, I exposed the bulk of it, though the large tetrahedron and the deflated balloons still lurked below the surface. After a quick search, I found Sojourner. The little fellow was only 2 meters from the lander. I vaguely remember it was farther away when they last saw it. It probably entered a contingency mode and started circling the lander, trying to communicate. I quickly deposited Sojourner in my rover. It's small, light, and easily fit in the airlock. The lander was a different story. I had no hope of getting the whole thing back to the hab. It was just too big, but I only needed the probe itself. It was time for me to put on my mechanical engineer hat. The probe was on the central panel of the unfolded tetrahedron. The other 3 sides were each attached to the central panel with a metal hinge. As anyone at JPL will tell you, probes are delicate things. Weight is a serious concern, so they're not made to stand up to much punishment. When I took a crowbar to the hinges, they popped right off. Then things got difficult. When I tried to lift the central panel assembly, it didn't budge. Just like the other 3 panels, the central panel had deflated balloons underneath it. Over the decades, the balloons had ripped and filled with sand. I could cut off the balloons, but I'd have to dig to get to them. It wouldn't be hard, it's just sand. But the other 3 panels were in the damn way. I quickly realized I didn't give a crap about the condition of the other panels. I went back to my rover, cut some strips of HAB material, then braided them into a primitive but strong rope. I can't take credit for it being strong. Thank NASA for that. I just made it rope-shaped. I tied one end to a panel and the other to the rover. The rover was made for traversing extremely rugged terrain, often at steep angles. It may not be fast, but it has great torque. I towed the panel away like a redneck removing a tree stump. Now I had a place to dig. As I exposed each balloon, I cut it off. The whole task took an hour. Then I hoisted the central panel assembly up and carried it confidently to the rover. At least that's what I wanted to do. The damn thing is still heavy as hell. I'm guessing it's 200 kilograms. Even in Mars's gravity, that's a bit much. I could carry it around a HAB easily enough, but lifting it while wearing an awkward EVA suit? Out of the question. So I dragged it to the rover. Now for my next feat, getting it on the roof. The roof was empty at the moment. Even with mostly full batteries, I had set up the solar cells when I stopped. Why not? Free energy. I'd worked it out in advance. On the way here, 2 stacks of solar panels occupied the whole roof. On the way back, I'll use a single stack to make room for the probe. It's a little more dangerous. The stack might fall over. Also, the cells will be a pain in the ass to stack that high, but I'll get it done. I can't just throw a rope over the rover and hoist Pathfinder up the side. I don't want to break it. I mean, it's already broken. They lost contact in 1997, but I don't want to break it more. I came up with a solution, but I'd done enough physical labor for one day, and I was almost out of daylight. Now I'm in the rover, looking at Sojourner. It seems all right. No physical damage on the outside. Doesn't look like anything got too baked by the sunlight. The dense layer of Mars crap all over it protected it from long-term solar damage. You may think Sojourner isn't much use to me. It can't communicate with Earth. Why do I care about it? Because it has a lot of moving parts. If I establish a link with NASA, I can talk to them by holding a page of text up to the lander's camera. But how would they talk to me? The only moving parts on the lander are the high-gain antenna, which would have to stay pointed at Earth, and the camera boom. We'd have to come up with a system where NASA could talk by rotating the camera head. It would be painfully slow. But Sojourner has 6 independent wheels that rotate reasonably fast. It'll be much easier to communicate with those. I could draw letters on the wheels. NASA could rotate them to spell things at me. That all assumes I can get the lander's radio working at all. Time to turn in. I've got a lot of back-breaking physical labor to do tomorrow. I'll need my rest. Log entry. Sol 83. Oh, God, I'm sore. But it's the only way I could think of to get the lander safely onto the roof. I built a ramp out of rocks and sand, just like the ancient Egyptians did. And if there's one thing Ares Vallis has, it's rocks. First, I experimented to find out how steep the grade could be. I piled some rocks near the lander and dragged it up the pile and back down again. Then I made the pile steeper and made sure I could drag the lander up and down. I repeated this over and over until I found the best grade for my ramp, 30 degrees. Anything more was too risky. I might lose my grip and send the lander tumbling down the ramp. The roof of the rover is over 2 meters from the ground, so I'd need a ramp almost 4 meters long. I got to work. The first few rocks were easy, and they started feeling heavier and heavier. Hard physical labor in a spacesuit is murder. Everything's more effort because you're lugging 20 kilograms of suit around with you, and your movement is limited. I was panting within 20 minutes. So I cheated. I upped my O2 mixture. It really helped a lot. Probably shouldn't make that a habit. Also, I didn't get hot. The suit leaks heat faster than my body could ever generate it. The heating system is what keeps the temperature bearable. My physical labor just meant the suit didn't have to heat itself as much. After hours of grueling labor, I finally got the ramp made. Nothing more than a pile of rocks against the rover, but it reached the roof. I stomped up and down the ramp first to make sure it was stable, then I dragged the lander up. It worked like a charm. I was all smiles as I lashed the lander in place. I made sure it was firmly secured and even stacked the solar cells in a big single stack. Why waste the ramp? But then it hit me. The ramp would collapse as I drove away, and the rocks might damage the wheels or undercarriage. I'd have to take the ramp apart to keep that from happening. Tearing the ramp down was easier than putting it up. I didn't need to carefully put each rock in a stable place. I just dropped them wherever. It only took me an hour. And now I'm done. I'll start heading home tomorrow with my new 200-kilogram broken radio. Chapter 10. Log entry. Sol 90. 7 days since Pathfinder, and 7 days closer to home. As I'd hoped, my inbound tracks gave me a path back to Lewis Valley. Then it was 4 sols of easy driving. The hills to my left made it impossible to get lost, and the terrain was smooth. But all good things come to an end. I'm back in Acidalia Planitia now. My outgoing tracks are long gone. It's been 16 days since I was last here. Even timid weather would clear them out in that time. On my way out, I should have made a pile of rocks every time I camped. The land is so flat they'd be visible for kilometers. On second thought, thinking back to making that damn ramp. So once again, I am the desert wanderer using Phobos to navigate and hoping I don't stray too far. All I need to do is get within 40 kilometers of the Hab and I'll pick up the beacon. I'm feeling optimistic. For the first time, I think I might get off this planet alive. With that in mind, I'm taking soil and rock samples every time I do an EVA. At first, I figured it was my duty. If I survive, geologists will love me for it. But then it started to get fun. Now, as I drive, I look forward to that simple act of bagging rocks. It just feels nice to be an astronaut again. That's all it is. Not a reluctant farmer, not an electrical engineer, not a long-haul trucker. An astronaut. I'm doing what astronauts do. I missed it. Log entry. Sol 92. I got 2 seconds of signal from the Hab beacon today, then lost it. But it's a good sign. I've been traveling vaguely north-northwest for 2 days. I must be a good 100 kilometers from the Hab. It's a miracle I got any signal at all. Must have been a moment of perfect weather conditions. During the boring-ass days, I'm working my way through the $6 Million Man from Commander Lewis's inexhaustible collection of 70s tripe. I just watched an episode where Steve Austin fights a Russian Venus probe that landed on Earth by mistake. As an expert in interplanetary travel, I can tell you there are no scientific inaccuracies in the story. It's quite common for probes to land on the wrong planet. Also, the probe's large, flat panel hull is ideal for the high-pressure Venusian atmosphere. And as we all know, probes often refuse to obey directives, choosing instead to attack humans on sight. So far, Pathfinder hasn't tried to kill me, but I'm keeping an eye on it. Log entry. Sol 93. I found the Hab signal today. No more chance to get lost. According to the computer, I'm 24,718 meters away. I'll be home tomorrow. Even if the rover has a catastrophic failure, I'll be fine. I can walk to the Hab from here. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I am really fucking sick of being in this rover. I spent so much time seated or lying down, my back is all screwed up. Of all my crewmates, the one I miss most right now is Beck. He'd fix my aching back. Though he'd probably give me a bunch of shit about it. Why didn't you do stretching exercises? Your body is important. Eat more fiber, or whatever. At this point, I'd welcome a health lecture. During training, we had to practice the dreaded missed orbit scenario. In the event of a second stage failure during MAV ascent, we'd be in orbit, but too low to reach Hermes. We'd be skimming the upper atmosphere, so our orbit would rapidly decay. NASA would remotely operate Hermes and bring it in to pick us up. Then we'd get the hell out of there before Hermes caught too much drag. To drill this, they made us stay in the MAV simulator for 3 miserable days. 6 people in an ascent vehicle originally designed for a 23-minute flight. It got a little cramped. And by a little cramped, I mean we wanted to kill each other. I'd give anything to be in that cramped capsule with those guys again. Man, I hope I get Pathfinder working again. Log entry. Sol 94. Home sweet home. Today I write from my gigantic cavernous hab. The first thing I did when I got in was wave my arms wildly while running in circles. Felt great. I was in that damn rover for 22 sols and couldn't even walk without suiting up. I'll need to endure twice that to get to Ares 4, but that's a problem for later. After a few celebratory laps around the hab, it was time to get to work. First, I fired up the oxygenator and atmospheric regulator. Checking the air levels, everything looked good. There was still CO2, so the plants hadn't suffocated without me exhaling for them. Naturally, I did an exhaustive check on my crops, and they're all healthy. I added my bags of shit to the manure pile. Lovely smell, I can tell you. But once I mixed some soil in, it died down to tolerable levels. I dumped my box of pee into the water reclaimer. I'd been gone over 3 weeks, and had left the hab very humid for the sake of the crops. That much water in the air can cause any amount of electrical problems, so I spent the next few hours doing full systems checks on everything. Then I kind of lounged around for a while. I wanted to spend the rest of the day relaxing, but I had more to do. After suiting up, I went out to the rover and dragged the solar cells off the roof. Over the next few hours, I put them back where they belonged, wiring them into the hab's power grid. Getting the lander off the roof was a hell of a lot easier than getting it up there. I detached a strut from the MAV platform and dragged it over to the rover. By leaning it against the hull and digging the other end into the ground for stability, I had a ramp. I should have brought that strut with me to the Pathfinder site. And live and learn. There's no way to get the lander in the airlock. It's just too big. I could probably dismantle it and bring it in a piece at a time, but there's a pretty compelling reason not to. With no magnetic field, Mars has no defense. If I were exposed to it, I'd get so much cancer the cancer would have cancer. So the hab canvas shields from electromagnetic waves.
Damn.
This means the hab itself would block any transmissions if the lander were inside. And speaking of cancer, it was time to get rid of the RTG. It pained me to climb back into the rover, but it had to be done. If the RTG ever broke open, it would kill me to death. NASA decided 4 kilometers was the safe distance, and I wasn't about to second-guess them. I drove back to where Commander Lewis had originally dumped it, ditched it in the same hole, and drove back to the hab. I'll start work on the lander tomorrow. Now to enjoy a good long sleep in an actual cot, with the comforting knowledge that when I wake, my morning piss will go into a toilet. Log entry, Sol 95. Today was all about repairs. The Pathfinder mission ended because the lander had an unknown critical failure. Once JPL lost contact with the lander, they had no idea what became of Sojourner. It might be in better shape. Maybe it just needs power. Power it couldn't get with its solar panels hopelessly caked with dust. I set the little rover on my workbench and pried open a panel to peek inside. The battery was a lithium thionyl chloride non-rechargeable. I figured that out from some subtle clues. The shape of the connection points, the thickness of the insulation, and the fact that it had lithium thionyl chloride non-rechargeable written on it. I cleaned the solar panels thoroughly, then aimed a small, flexible lamp directly at them. The battery's long dead, but the panels might be okay, and Sojourner can operate directly off them. We'll see if anything happens. Then it was time to take a look at Sojourner's daddy. I suited up and headed out. On most landers, the weak point is the battery. It's the most delicate component, and when it dies, there's no way to recover. Landers can't just shut down and wait when they have low batteries. Their electronics won't work unless they're at a minimum temperature, so they have heaters to keep the electronics warm. It's a problem that rarely comes up on Earth, but hey, Mars. Over time, the solar panels get covered with dust. Then, winter brings colder temperatures and less daylight. This all combines into a big fuck you from Mars to your lander. Eventually, it's using more power to keep warm than it's getting from the meager daylight that makes it through the dust. Once the battery runs down, the electronics get too cold to operate, and the whole system dies. The solar panels will recharge the battery somewhat, but there's nothing to tell the system to reboot. Anything that could make that decision would be electronics, which would not be working. Eventually, the now unused battery will lose its ability to retain charge. That's the usual cause of death, and I sure hope it's what killed Pathfinder. I piled some leftover parts of the MDV into a makeshift table and ramp. Then I dragged the lander up to my new outdoor workbench. Working in an EVA suit is annoying enough. Bending over the whole time would have been torture. I got my toolkit and started poking around. Opening the outer panel wasn't too hard, and I identified the battery easily enough. JPL labels everything. It's a 40 amp hour gold zinc battery with an optimal voltage of 1.5. Wow, they really made those things run on nothing back then. I detached the battery and headed back inside. I checked it with my electronics kit, and sure enough, it's dead. Dead. I could shuffle across a carpet and hold more charge.
Damn.
But I knew what the lander needed. 1.5 volts. Compared to the makeshift crap I've been gluing together since Sol 6, this was a breeze. I have voltage controllers in my kit. It only took me 15 minutes to put a controller on a reserve power line, then another hour to go outside and run the line to where the battery used to be. Then there's the issue of heat. It's a good idea to keep electronics above negative 40 degrees Celsius. The temperature today is a brisk negative 63 degrees Celsius. The battery was big and easy to identify, but I had no clue where the heaters were. Even if I knew, it'd be too risky to hook them directly to power. I could easily fry the whole system. So instead, I went to good old Spare Parts Rover 1 and stole its environment heater. I've gutted that poor Rover so much it looks like I parked it in a bad part of town.
Damn.
I lugged the heater to my outdoor workbench and hooked it to hab power. Then I rested it in the lander where the battery used to be. Now I wait and hope. Log entry, Sol 96. I was really hoping I'd wake up to a functional lander, but no such luck. Its high-gain antenna is right where I last saw it. Why does that matter? Well, I'll tell you. If the lander comes back to life, and that's a big if, it'll try to establish contact with Earth. Problem is, nobody's listening. It's not like the Pathfinder team is hanging around JPL just in case their long-dead probe is repaired by a wayward astronaut. The Deep Space Network and SETI are my best bets for picking up the signal. If either of them caught a blip from Pathfinder, they'd tell JPL. JPL would quickly figure out what was going on, especially when they triangulated the signal to my landing site. They'd tell the lander where Earth is, and it would angle the high-gain antenna appropriately. That there, the angling of the antenna, is how I'll know if it linked up. So far, no action. There's still hope. Any number of reasons could be delaying things. The rover heater is designed to heat air at 1 atmosphere, and the thin Martian air severely hampers its ability to work, so the electronics might need more time to warm up. Also, Earth is only visible during the day. I, hopefully, fixed the lander yesterday evening. It's morning now, so most of the intervening time has been night. No Earth. Sojourners showing no signs of life either. It's been in the nice warm environment of the hab all night, with plenty of light on its sparkling clean solar cells. Maybe it's running an extended self-check or staying still until it hears from the lander or something. I'll just have to put it out of my mind for now. Pathfinder log. Sol 0. Boot sequence initiated. Time. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. Loss of power detected. Time, date unreliable. Loading OS. VxWare operating system. Copyright. Wind River Systems performing hardware check. Internal temperature. Negative 34 degrees Celsius. External temperature. Non-functional. Battery. Full. High gain. OK. Low gain. OK. Wind sensor. Non-functional. Meteorology. Non-functional. ASI. Non-functional. Imager. OK. Rover ramp. Non-functional. Solar A. Non-functional. Solar B. Non-functional. Solar C. Non-functional. Hardware check complete. Broadcasting status. Listening for telemetry signal. Listening for telemetry signal. Listening for telemetry signal. Signal acquired. Chapter 11.
What the fuck? You got that shit working?
Something's coming in.
Yo, this shit is getting kind of intense. So we're listening to someone read The Martian. So if I don't know, because I didn't see the movie, but Matt Damon starred in a movie called The Martian. Am I mistaken? I think that was it. And if I'm once again, if I'm correct, this may be the book that movie was based off of. I don't know. It's been years since I actually listened to an audiobook. But for some reason it just popped up in my YouTube feed, and I was like, all right, I'll listen to it. And this shit has been fucking good, yo. Like, I've always been a sci-fi fan, yo. Like, I love sci-fi. Like I said, going back to the Ray Bradbury's Martian series, you know what I'm saying? All that shit really intrigued me as a child. And years and years ago, about 10, 12 years ago now, I read Orson Scott Card's Ender Game series, and that's like a space drama, all colonizing different planets and all this amazing technology, and just like the Dune series. So I've always been a fan of space drama. Some of my favorite anime. If you ever seen Cowboy Bebop, it's an anime series. They got a couple movies too. I own all that shit, yo. Like Cowboy Bebop is a fucking good ass space drama. A space soap opera. That shit is fucking dope as shit, yo. And so I was like, all right, The Martian, audiobook by Andy Weir. Started listening to it. And shit, I've been hooked on this shit ever since. Like, there's two parts. The first part is a little over 5 hours, and the second part is a little over 5 hours.
Yeah.
And it seems like pretty easy reading. The author obviously had to do a lot of research because he uses a lot of technical terms, like even just describing the battery, what kind of lithium battery it was inside the rover, knowing all the different parts of the rover, and early on, he talked about how he wanted to grow potatoes, but you're fucking on Mars with no sand. The astronaut who's stranded there is a botanist and an engineer, and so and that's what they said. Like, to be a part of the Mars missions, you had to be proficient in two disciplines. Everybody on the mission had two disciplines, so you just can't be good at one shit. You know what I'm saying? And so his two fields were botany and engineering. And so he went through this whole complex process of making soil that was nutrient rich enough to grow potatoes inside of this hab where it's not really built to do that. And so he had to go through all these, engineering problems. And so the author is fucking smart as shit, yo. But the way he writes it, it still seems as if it would be an easy read. And he makes the character really, down to earth, and has a really good personality, and actually, being stranded on Mars, he still has this morale even by himself, you know what I'm saying? Just like, yo, if I can just survive until they come, shit is gonna be alright. And you know what I'm saying? He's doing everything he has to. And shit is interesting as fuck, yo. If you were stranded on Mars by yourself, would you survive for 4 years? That's his task. You only have 1 year of supplies. You're not even really supposed to have 1 year of supplies. You're supposed to have like 4 or 5 months of supplies, but that's for 6 people. or some shit he said. 3 months of supplies for 6 people, but he's the only person, so that amount of supplies is going to last him for an entire year. Maybe he can stretch it a little bit more if he rations. He has to figure out how to, keep water, how to fucking keep the oxygen and everything working, how to grow some food for calories, because eventually he'll fucking starve to death. And it's like, he already sees, like, he has to make this shit work for 4 fucking years until the next mission comes. But right now he's on a part where he's trying to communicate with Earth, and because he's still under the assumption that Earth doesn't know that he's alive, but Earth does know that he's alive. They thought he was dead, and some really brilliant intern figured out some shit by looking at the photographs of Mars that the satellites were taking. This shit is like, whoa, shit is moving around down there. Like, somebody is down there still doing shit. She's like, yo, that dude is not dead, yo. And so now he's attempting to contact Earth. Earth's attempting to contact him. They're trying to set up some shit to get supplies to him and everything. But I don't know. He's doing his job. He's very suited for the job that he's doing. He's a Martian astronaut by himself, and he's figuring out every fucking way to make that shit work, yo. Like, this motherfucker is nigga rigging everything, doing everything he fucking can to try to survive on this shit, on this desolate, frozen planet for goddamn 4 years. That shit is crazy.
Yes, it's Pathfinder. Chapter 11. Something's coming in. Yes, it's Pathfinder. The crowded room burst into applause and cheers. Venkat slapped an unknown technician on the back while Bruce pumped his fist in the air. The ad hoc Pathfinder Control Center was an accomplishment in itself. Over the last 20 days, a team of JPL engineers had worked around the clock to piece together antiquated computers, repair broken components, network everything, and install hastily made software that allowed the old systems to interact with the modern deep space network. The room itself was formerly a conference room. JPL had no space ready for the sudden need. Already jam-packed with computers and equipment, the cramped space had turned positively claustrophobic, with the many spectators now squeezing into it. One Associated Press camera team pressed against the back wall, trying and failing to stay out of everyone's way while recording the auspicious moment. The rest of the media would have to satisfy themselves with the live AP feed and await a press conference. Venkat turned to Bruce. God damn, Bruce. You really pulled a rabbit out of your hat this time. Good work. I'm just the director, Bruce said modestly. Thank the guys who got all this stuff working. Oh, I will, Venkat beamed. But first, I have to talk to my new best friend. Turning to the headsetted man at the communications console, Venkat asked, What's your name, new best friend? Tim, he said, not taking his eyes off the screen. What now? Venkat asked. We sent the return telemetry automatically. It'll get there in just over 11 minutes. Once it does, Pathfinder will start high-gain transmissions, so it'll be 22 minutes till we hear from it again. Venkat's got a doctorate in physics, Tim, Bruce said. You don't need to explain transmission time to him. Tim shrugged. You can never tell with managers. What was the transmission we got? Venkat asked. Just the bare bones. A hardware self-check. It's got a lot of non-functional systems because they were on the panels Wadley removed. What about the camera? It says the imager's working. We'll have it take a panorama as soon as we can. Log entry. Sol 97. It worked. Holy shit, it worked! I just suited up and checked the lander. The high-gain antenna is angled directly at Earth. Pathfinder has no way of knowing where it is, so it has no way of knowing where Earth is. The only way for it to find out is getting a signal. They know I'm alive. I don't even know what to say. This was an insane plan, and somehow it worked. I'm going to be talking to someone again. I spent 3 months as the loneliest man in history, and it's finally over. Sure, I might not get rescued, but I won't be alone. The whole time I was recovering Pathfinder, I imagined what this moment would be like. I figured I'd jump up and down a bit, cheer, maybe flip off the ground, because this whole damn planet is my enemy.
Fuck you, Mars!
But that's not what happened. When I got back to the hab and took off the EPA suit, I sat down in the dirt and cried, bawled like a little kid for several minutes. I finally settled down to mild sniffling and then felt a deep calm. It was a good calm. It occurs to me, now that I might live, I have to be more careful about logging embarrassing moments. How do I delete log entries? There's no obvious way. I'll get to it later. I've got more important things to do. I've got people to talk to. Venkat grinned as he took the podium in the JPL press room. We received the high-gain response just over half an hour ago, he said to the assembled press. We immediately directed Pathfinder to take a panoramic image. Hopefully, Watney has some kind of message for us. Questions? The sea of reporters raised their hands. Kathy, let's start with you, Venkat said, pointing to the CNN reporter. Thanks, she said. Have you had any contact with the Sojourner rover? Unfortunately, no, he replied. The lander hasn't been able to connect to Sojourner, and we have no way to contact it directly. What might be wrong with Sojourner? I can't even speculate, Venkat said. After spending that long on Mars, anything could be wrong with it. Best guess? Our best guess is he took it into the hab. The lander's signal wouldn't be able to reach Sojourner through hab canvas. Pointing to another reporter, he said, You, there. Marty West, NBC News, Marty said. How will you communicate with Watney once everything's up and running? That'll be up to Watney, said Venkat. All we have to work with is the camera. He can write notes and hold them up, but how we talk back is trickier. How so? Marty asked. Because all we have is the camera platform. That's the only moving part. There are plenty of ways to get information across with just the platform's rotation, but no way to tell Watney about them. He'll have to come up with something and tell us. We'll follow his lead. Pointing to the next reporter, he said, Go ahead. Jill Holbrook, BBC. With a 32-minute round trip and nothing but a single rotating platform to talk with, it'll be a dreadfully slow conversation, won't it? Yes, it will, Venkat confirmed. It's early morning in Acidalia Planitia right now, and just past 3 a.m. here in Pasadena. We'll be here all night, and that's just for a start. No more questions for now. The panorama is due back in a few minutes. We'll keep you posted. Before anyone could ask a follow-up, Venkat strode out the side door and hurried down the hall to the makeshift Pathfinder control center. He pressed through the throng to the communications console. Anything, Tim? Totally, he replied. But we're staring at this black screen because it's way more interesting than pictures from Mars. You're a smart-ass, Tim, Venkat said. Noted. Bruce pushed his way forward. Still another few seconds on the clock, he said. The time passed in silence. Getting something, Tim said. Yep, it's the panoramic. Sighs of relief and muted conversation replaced tense silence as the image began coming through. It filled out from left to right at a snail's pace due to the bandwidth limitations of the antique probe sending it. Martian surface, Venkat said as the lines slowly filled in. More surface. Edge of the hab, Bruce said, pointing to the screen. Hab, Venkat smiled. More hab now. More hab. Is that a message? That's a message! As the image grew, it revealed a handwritten note suspended at the camera's height by a thin metal rod. We got a note from Mark, Venkat announced to the room. Applause filled the room, then quickly died down. What's it say? Someone asked. Venkat leaned closer to the screen. It says, I'll write questions here. Are you receiving? Okay, said Bruce. That's what it says, Venkat shrugged. Another note, said Tim, pointing to the screen as more of the image came through. Venkat leaned in again. This one says, point here for yes. He folded his arms. All right, we have communication with Mark. Tim, point the camera at yes. Then start taking pictures at 10-minute intervals until he puts another question up. Log entry. Sol 97. 2. Yes. They said yes. I haven't been this excited about a yes since prom night. Okay, calm down. I have limited paper to work with. These cards were intended to label batches of samples. I have about 50 cards. I can use both sides, and if it comes down to it, I can reuse them by scratching out the old question. The Sharpie I'm using will last much longer than the cards, so ink isn't a problem. But I have to do all my writing in the hab. I don't know what kind of hallucinogenic crap that ink is made of, but I'm pretty sure it would boil off in Mars's atmosphere. I'm using old parts of the antenna array to hold the cards up. There's a certain irony to that. We'll need to talk faster than yes-no questions every half hour. The camera can rotate 360 degrees, and I have plenty of antenna parts. Time to make an alphabet. But I can't just use the letters A through Z. 26 letters plus my question card would be 27 cards around the lander. Each one would only get 13 degrees of arc. Even if JPL points the camera perfectly, there's a good chance I won't know which letter they meant. So I'll have to use ASCII. That's how computers manage characters. Each character has a numerical code between 0 and 255. Values between 0 and 255 can be expressed as 2 hexadecimal digits. By giving me pairs of hex digits, they can send any character they like, including numbers, punctuation, etc. How do I know which values go with which characters? Because Johansson's laptop is a wealth of information. I knew she'd have an ASCII table in there somewhere. All computer geeks do. So I'll make cards for 0 through 9 and A through F. That makes 16 cards to place around the camera, plus the question card. 17 cards means over 21 degrees each. Much easier to deal with. Time to get to work. Spell with ASCII. 0 through F at 21 degree increments. We'll watch camera starting 1100 hours my time. When message done, return to this position. Wait 20 minutes after completion to take picture, so I can write and post reply. Repeat process at top of every hour. STATUS. No physical problems. All HAB components functional. Eating 3-quarter rations. Successfully growing crops in HAB with cultivated soil. Note, situation not Ares 3 crew's fault. Bad luck. HOWALIVE. Impaled by antenna fragment. Knocked out by decompression. Landed face down. Blood sealed hole. Woke up after crew left. Biomonitor computer destroyed by puncture. Crew had reason to think me dead. Not their fault. CROPS? Question mark. Long story. Extreme botany. Have 126 meters squared farmland growing potatoes. Will extend food supply, but not enough to last until Ares 4 landing. Modified rover for long distance travel. Plan to drive to Ares 4. WESAW dash SATLITE. Government watching me with satellites? Need tinfoil hat. Also need faster way to communicate. Speak and spell taking all damn day. Any ideas? BRINGSJRNROUT. Sojourner rover brought out, placed 1 meter due north of lander. If you can contact it, I can draw hex numbers on the wheels and you can send me 6 bytes at a time. SJRNRNOTRSPND. Damn. Any other ideas? Need faster communication. WORKINGONIT. Earth is about to set. Resume 0800 hours my time tomorrow morning. Tell family I'm fine. Give crew my best. Tell Commander Lewis disco sucks.
Damn.
Venkat blinked his bleary eyes several times as he tried to organize the papers on his desk. His temporary
That's
desk
what I'm
at
saying,
JPL
yo.
was nothing more than a folding table.
This motherfucker's still on Mars. He done figured out all this complicated shit to get a motherfucking message out. This dude's smart as shit, yo. But he's just like, yo, we need a faster way to communicate. And oh, don't forget, tell my homeboy Disco sucks. You know what I'm saying? No matter what, he's keeping a sense of humor through this whole fucking ordeal, yo. That shit is some shit, yo. That motherfucker got some real guts, though. You know what I'm saying? Don't forget to tell him Disco sucks. I almost wish I would have read this book myself. What's up, guys? Frankie with the fingers. I'm working on his fingers right now, Frankie. You know what I'm saying? Trying to work on his fingers, make his fingers look nice. Got that cup. Ooh, what's that in there? Ooh, Newports. And a little bit of juice. That's that grown folk juice. So I was working on their hand a little bit yesterday. And I'm applying the second layer of paint to this canvas. You can really tell the difference now here in this first layer of paint. It's really dark, really blotchy. Not many details at all, but that's how I started to block it in comparison with the second layer where the tones are starting to show a little bit better, adding some more of the finer details into it. And so now I'm just working my way around this hand here, his right hand, and after I get this portion done, I'll probably bring his shoulder down and work on his torso and stomach and just try to add the second layer to all the skin tone. So their legs here, and this section is the last part I have to do. After I do that, I'll probably jump back into the green. And oh well, that's still kind of wet. I thought it was dry by now, but I don't know, I might still can play with that green a little bit. If not, if that background is too wet, I'll just add another layer to his blue jeans and see how it looks from there. Let me take a quick bathroom break. I went to the gym this morning. I drank 3 bottles of water and 2 smoothies. That shit is coming
set up
out.
in the back of a break room. People were in and out picking up snacks all day. But on the plus side, the coffee pot was nearby. "Excuse me," said a man approaching the table. "Yes, they're out of Diet Coke," Venkat said without looking up. "I don't know when Site Services refills the fridge." "I'm actually here to talk to you, Dr. Kapoor." "Huh?" said Venkat, looking up. He shook his head. "Sorry, I was up all night." He gulped his coffee. "Who are you again?" "Jack Trevor," said the thin, pale man before Venkat. "I work in software engineering." "What can I do for you?" "We have an idea for communication." "I'm all ears." "We've been looking through the old Pathfinder software. We got duplicate computers up and running for testing. Same computers they used to find a problem that almost killed the original mission. Real interesting story, actually. Turns out there was a priority inversion in Sojourner's thread management, and— "Focus, Jack," interrupted Venkat. "Right. Well, the thing is, Pathfinder has an OS update process, so we can change the software to anything we want." "How does this help us?" "Pathfinder has 2 communication systems. One to talk to us, the other to talk to Sojourner. We can change the second system to broadcast on the Ares 3 rover frequency, and we can have it pretend to be the beacon signal from the HAB." "You can get Pathfinder talking to Mark's rover?" "It's the only option. The HAB's radio is dead, but the rover has communications equipment made for talking to the HAB and the other rover. Problem is, to implement a new comm system, both ends of it need to have the right software running. We can remotely update Pathfinder, but not the rover." "So," Venkat said, "you can get Pathfinder to talk to the rover, but you can't get the rover to listen or talk back." "Right. Ideally, we want our text to show up on the rover screen, and whatever Watney types to be sent back to us. That requires a change to the rover software. Venkat sighed. What's the point of this discussion if we can't update the rover software? Jack grinned as he continued. We can't do the patch, but Watney can. We can just send the data and have him enter the update into the rover himself. How much data are we talking about? I have guys working on the rover software right now. The patch file will be 20 meg minimum. We can send 1 byte to Watney every 4 seconds or so with the speaking spell. It'd take 3 years of constant broadcasting to get that patch across. Obviously, that's no good. But you're talking to me, so you have a solution, right? Venkat probed, resisting the urge to scream. Of course, Jack beamed. Software engineers are sneaky bastards when it comes to data management. Enlighten me, said Venkat. Here's the clever part, Jack said conspiratorially. The rover currently parses the signal into bytes, then identifies the specific sequence the HAB sends. That way, natural radio waves won't throw off the homing. If the bytes aren't right, the rover ignores them. Okay, so what? It means there's a spot in the code base where it's got the parsed bytes. We can insert a tiny bit of code, just 20 instructions to write the parsed bytes to a log file before checking their validity. This sounds promising, Venkat said. It is, Jack said excitedly. First, we update Pathfinder so it knows how to talk to the rover. Then we tell Watney exactly how to hack the rover software to add those 20 instructions. Then we have Pathfinder broadcast new software to the rover. The rover logs the bytes to a file. Finally, Watney launches the file as an executable and the rover patches itself. Venkat furrowed his brow, taking in far more information than his sleep-deprived mind wanted to accept. Jack said, you're not cheering or dancing. So we just need to send Watney those 20 instructions? Venkat asked. That, and how to edit the files, and where to insert the instructions in the files. Just like that. Just like that? Venkat was silent for a moment. Jack, I'm going to buy your whole team autographed Star Trek memorabilia. I prefer Star Wars, he said, turning to leave. The original trilogy, of course. Of course, Venkat said. As Jack walked away, a woman approached Venkat's table. Yes, Venkat said. I can't find any Diet Coke. Are we out? Yes, Venkat said. I don't know when Site Services refills the fridge. Thanks, she said. Just as he was about to get back to work, his mobile rang. He groaned loudly at the ceiling as he snatched the phone from his desk. Hello, he said as cheerfully as he could. I need a picture of Watney. Hi, Annie. Nice to hear from you, too. How are things back in Houston? Cut the shit, Venkat. I need a picture. It's not that simple, Venkat explained. You're talking to him with a fucking camera. How hard can it be? We spell out our message, wait 20 minutes, and then take a picture. Watney's back in the hab by then. So tell him to be around when you take the next picture, Annie demanded. We can only send one message per hour, and only when Acidalia Planitia is facing Earth, Venkat said. We're not going to waste a message just to tell him to pose for a photo. Besides, he'll be in his EVA suit. You won't even be able to see his face. I need something, Venkat, Annie said. You've been in contact for 24 hours and the media is going apeshit. They want an image for the story. It'll be on every news site in the world. You have the pictures of his notes. Make do with that. Not enough, Annie said. The press is crawling down my throat for this. And up my ass. Both directions, Venkat. They're gonna meet in the middle.
Damn.
You'll have to wait a few days.
They're gonna meet in the middle.
We're going to try and link Pathfinder to the rover computer. A few days? Annie gasped. This is all anyone cares about right now. In the world. This is the biggest story since Apollo 13. Give me a fucking picture. Venkat sighed. I'll try to get it tomorrow. Great, she said. Looking forward to it.
Fucking bitch.
Log entry. Psalm 98. I have to be watching the camera when it spells things out. It's half a byte at a time. So I watch a pair of numbers, then look them up on an ASCII cheat sheet I made. That's one letter. I don't want to forget my letters, so I scrape them into the dirt with a rod. The process of looking up a letter and scraping it in the dirt takes a couple of seconds. Sometimes when I look back at the camera, I've missed a number. I can usually guess it from context, but other times I just miss out. Today I got up hours earlier than I needed to. It was like Christmas morning. I could hardly wait for 0800 hours to roll around. I had breakfast, did some unnecessary checks on HAB equipment, and read some Poirot. Finally, the time came. CN HAK RVR 2 TLK 2 PTHFDR PRP 4 LONG MSG. Yeah, took me a minute. Can hack rover to talk to Pathfinder. Prepare for long message. That took some mental gymnastics to work out, but it was great news. If we could get that set up, we'd only be limited by transmission time. I set up a note that said, Roger. Not sure what they meant by long message, but I figured I better be ready. I went out 15 minutes before the top of the hour and smoothed out a big area of dirt. I found the longest antenna rod I had so I could reach into the smooth area without having to step on it. Then I stood by, waiting. At exactly the top of the hour, the message came. Capitals LNCH, lowercase HEXIDIT, capitals ON, RVR, CMP, comma, capitals OPEN, FILE, dash, / lowercase USR, / LIB, / HABCOMM.SO, dash, capitals SCROLLTILIDXON, capitals LFTIS, colon, 2, capitals AAE, 5, comma, capitals OVRWRT, 141, capitals BYTSWTHDATA,
What the fuck?
WE apostrophe LL SND NXT MSG, comma, capitals STAND INVIEW, 4, capitals NXT PIC 20, capitals MIN FTER THS DONE. Jesus. Okay. They want me to launch HexEdit on the rover's computer, then open the file /user /lib /habcom.so, scroll until the index reading on the left of the screen is 2AAE5, then replace the bytes there with the 141-byte sequence NASA will send in the next message. Fair enough. Also, for some reason, they want me to hang around for the next pick. Not sure why. You can't see any part of me when I'm in the suit. Even the faceplate would reflect too much light. Still, it's what they want. I went back in and copied down the message for future reference. Then I wrote a short note and came back out. Usually I'd pin up the note and go back in, but this time I had to hang around for a photo op. I gave the camera a thumbs up to go along with my note, which read, "Hey." Blame the 70s TV.
Hey, that fucker's stupid.
I asked for a
Blame
picture,
70s TV.
and I get the funds. Didn't mind, you bucket. Looks like your picture. Quick bit.
Can you imagine this shit, yo? Yo, the media wants a fucking picture. He's the only fucking man on Mars. We thought he was fucking dead. He's alive. This is the biggest story in the fucking world. Get a picture. Man, we need you to take a picture. All right, no problem. Hey. Oh my god, this dude is fucking silly as shit, yo. Blame 70s TV. I ask for a picture and I get the fucking fines. I might really have to watch this movie, yo, and see if it's how close they stuck to the how closely the script sticks to the book.
I asked for a picture with my note, which read, then I wrote a short note and came back out.
A short note?
Usually I'd pin up the note and go back in. This time I had to hang around for a photo op. I gave the camera a thumbs up to go along with my note, which read, hey. Blame the 70s TV.
Oh my God.
I asked for a picture, and I get the funds? Annie asked, admonishing Venkat. You got your picture. Quit bitching, he said, cradling the phone on his shoulder. He paid more attention to the schematics in front of him than the conversation. Eh? Annie mocked. Why would he do that? Have you met Mark Watney? Fine.
Obviously, you don't
Annie
know this
said,
dude.
But I want to pick up his face ASAP. Can't do that. Why not? Because if he takes off his helmet, he'll die.
Dumbass.
Annie, I have to go. One of the JPL programmers is here and it's urgent. Bye. But, Annie said as he hung up. Jack, in the doorway, said, It's not urgent. Yeah, I know, Venkat said. What can I do for you? We were thinking, Jack began. This rover hack might get kind of detailed. We may have to do a bunch of back and forth communication with Watney. That's fine, Venkat said. Take your time, do it right. We could get things done faster with a shorter transmission time, Jack said. Venkat gave him a puzzled look. Do you have a plan for moving Earth and Mars closer together? Earth doesn't have to be involved, Jack said. Hermes is 73 million kilometers from Mars right now, only 4 light minutes away. Beth Johansson is a great programmer. She could talk Mark through it. Out of the question, Venkat said. She's the mission SASOP, Jack pressed on. This is her exact area of expertise. Can't do it, Jack. The crew still doesn't know. What is with you? Why won't you just tell them? Watney's not my only responsibility, Venkat said. I've got 5 other astronauts in deep space who have to concentrate on their return trip. Nobody thinks about it, but statistically, they're in more danger than Watney right now. He's on a planet. They're in space. Jack shrugged. Fine, we'll do it the slow way. Log entry. Sol 98, 2. Ever transcribed 141 random bytes, 1/2 of a byte at a time? It's boring. And it's tricky when you don't have a pen. Earlier I'd just written letters in the sand, but this time I needed a way to get the numbers onto something portable. My first plan was use a laptop. Each crewman had their own laptop, so I have 6 at my disposal. Rather, I had 6. I now have 5. I thought a laptop would be fine outside. It's just electronics, right? It'll keep warm enough to operate in the short term, and it doesn't need air for anything. It died instantly. The screen went black before I was out of the airlock. Turns out the L in LCD stands for liquid. I guess it either froze or boiled off. Maybe I'll post a consumer review. Brought product to surface of Mars. It stopped working. 0 out of 10. So I used a camera. I got lots of them, specially made for working on Mars. I wrote the bytes in the sand as they came in, took a picture, then transcribed them in the hab. It's night now, so no more messages. Tomorrow I'll enter this into the rover and the geeks at JPL can take it from there. A notable smell hung in the air of the makeshift Pathfinder control room. The ventilation system was not designed for so many people, and everyone had been working every waking moment without much time for personal hygiene. Come on up here, Jack, said Venkat. You get to be the most Tim-word today. Thanks, said Jack, taking Venkat's place next to Tim. Hey, Tim. Jack, said Tim. How long will the patch take? Venkat asked. Should be pretty much instant, Jack answered. Watney entered the hack earlier today, and we confirmed it worked. We updated Pathfinder's OS without any problem. We sent the rover patch, which Pathfinder rebroadcast. Once Watney executes the patch and reboots the rover, we should get a connection. Jesus, what a complicated process, Venkat said. Try updating a Linux server sometime, Jack said.
Damn.
After a moment of silence, Tim said, You know he was telling a joke, right? That was supposed to be funny. Oh, said Venkat. I'm a physics guy, not a computer guy. He's not funny to computer guys either. You're a very unpleasant man, Tim, Jack said. Systems online, said Tim. What?
I heard that old
It's
Linux.
online.
That shit was
FYI.
tough, though.
Holy crap, Jack said. It worked, Venkat announced to the room. 1100 hours, 18 minutes. Jack said. To computer guys either. Silence, Tim said. You know he was telling a joke, right? That was supposed to be funny. Oh, said Venkat. I'm a physics guy, not a computer guy. He's not funny to computer guys either. You're a very unpleasant man, Tim, Jack said. System's online, said Tim. What? It's online, FYI. Holy crap, Jack said. It worked, Venkat announced to the room. 1100 hours, 18 minutes. JPL. Mark, this is Venkat Kapoor. We've been watching you since Sol 49. The whole world's been rooting for you. Amazing job getting Pathfinder. We're working on rescue plans. JPL is adjusting Ares 4's MDV to do a short overland flight. They'll pick you up, then take you with them to Schiaparelli. We're putting together a supply mission to keep you fed till Ares 4 arrives. 1100 hours, 29 minutes. Watney. Glad to hear it. Really looking forward to not dying. I want to make it clear it wasn't the crew's fault. Side question. What did they say when they found out I was alive? Also, hi, Mom. 1100 hours, 41 minutes. JPL. Tell us about your crops. We estimated your food packs would last until Sol 400 at 3/4 ration per meal. Will your crops affect that number? As to your question, we haven't told the crew you're alive yet. We wanted them to concentrate on their own mission. 1100 hours, 52 minutes. Watney. The crops are potatoes grown from the ones we were supposed to prepare on Thanksgiving. They're doing great, but the available farmland isn't enough for sustainability. I'll run out of food around Sol 900. Also, tell the crew I'm alive. What the fuck is wrong with you? 1200 hours, 4 minutes. JPL. We'll get botanists in to ask detailed questions and double-check your work. Your life is at stake, so we want to be sure. Sol 900 is great news. It'll give us a lot more time to get the supply mission together. Also, please watch your language. Everything you type is being broadcast live all over the world. 1200 hours, 15 minutes. Watney. Look. Boobies.
Damn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Into the phone. I appreciate the call,
fuck,
and I'll
what
pass
y'all
your
doing, man?
congratulations
Look,
on to the whole organization.
Fuck King of Mars right now.
He
bitch.
terminated the call and put his phone on the corner of his desk, flush with the desktop's edges.
Boobies.
Mitch knocked on the open door to the office. This a good time? Mitch asked. Come in, Mitch, Teddy said. Have a seat. Thanks, Mitch said, sitting in a fine leather couch.
Fine.
He reached up to his earpiece and lowered the volume. How's mission control? Teddy asked. Fantastic, Mitch said. All's well with Hermes, and everyone's in great spirits thanks to what's going on at JPL. Today was a damn good day for a change. Yes, it was, Teddy agreed. Another step closer to getting Watney back alive. Yeah, about that, said Mitch. You probably know why I'm here. I can take a guess, said Teddy. You want to tell the crew Watney's alive? Yes, Mitch said. And you're bringing this up with me while Venkat is in Pasadena so he can't argue the other side. I shouldn't have to clear this with you or Venkat or anyone else. I'm the flight director. It should have been my call from the beginning, but you two stepped in and overrode me. Ignoring all that, we agreed we'd tell them when there was hope, and now there's hope. We've got communication, we have a plan for rescue in the works, and his farm buys us enough time to get him supplies. Okay, tell them, Teddy said. Mitch paused. Just like that? I knew you'd be here sooner or later, so I already thought it through and decided. Go ahead and tell them. Mitch stood up. All right. Thanks, he said as he left the office. Teddy swiveled in his chair and looked out his windows to the night sky. He pondered the faint red dot among the stars. Hang in there, Watney, he said. We're coming. Chapter 12. Watney slept peacefully in his bunk. He shifted slightly as some pleasant dream put a smile on his face. He'd done 3 EVAs the previous day, all filled with labor-intensive hab maintenance, so he slept deeper and better than he had in a long time.
I got narrator?
Good morning, crew, Lewis called out. It's a brand new day. Sol 6, up and at 'em. Watney added his voice to a chorus of groans. Come on, Lewis prodded. No bitching. You got 40 minutes more sleep than you would have on Earth. Martinez was first out of his bunk. An Air Force man, he could match Lewis's Navy schedule with ease. Morning, Commander, he said crisply. Johansson sat up, but made no further move toward the harsh world outside her blankets. A career software engineer, mornings were never her forte. Vogel slowly lumbered from his bunk, checking his watch. He wordlessly pulled on his jumpsuit, smoothing out what wrinkles he could. He sighed inwardly at the grimy feeling of another day without a shower. Watney turned away, hugging a pillow to his head. Noisy people, go away, he mumbled. Beck, Martinez called out, shaking the mission's doctor. Rise and shine, bud. Yeah, okay, Beck said blearily. Johansson fell out of her bunk, then remained on the floor. Pulling the pillow from Watney's hands, Lewis said, Let's move, Watney. Uncle Sam paid $100,000 for every second we'll be here. Bad woman take pillow, Watney groaned, unwilling to open his eyes. Back on Earth, I've tipped 200-pound men out of their bunks. Want to see what I can do in 0.4 G? No, not really, Watney said, sitting up. Having rousted the troops, Lewis sat at the comm station to check overnight messages from Houston. Watney shuffled to the ration cupboard and grabbed a breakfast at random. Hand me an eggs, will you? Martinez said. You can tell the difference? Watney said, passing Martinez a pack. Not really, Martinez said. Beck, what do you have? Watney continued. Don't care, Beck said. Give me whatever. Watney tossed a pack to him. Vogel, your usual sausages? Yeah, please, Vogel responded. You know you're a stereotype, right? I'm comfortable with that, Vogel replied, taking the offered breakfast.
I'm comfortable with that.
Hey, Sunshine, Watney called to Johansson. Eating breakfast today? Johansson grunted. Pretty sure that's a no, Watney guessed. The crew ate in silence. Johansson eventually trudged to the ration cupboard and got a coffee packet. She clumsily added hot water, then sipped until wakefulness crept in. Mission updates from Houston, Lewis said. Satellites show a storm coming, but we can do surface ops before it gets here. Vogel, Martinez, you'll be with me outside. Johansson, you're stuck tracking weather reports. Watney, your soil experiments are bumped up to today. Beck, run the samples from yesterday's EVA through the spectrometer. Should you really go out with a storm on the way? Beck asked. Houston authorized it, Lewis said. Seems needlessly dangerous. Coming to Mars was needlessly dangerous, Lewis said. What's your point? Beck shrugged. Just be careful.
Just saying.
3 figures looked eastward. Their bulky EVA suits rendered them nearly identical. Only the European Union flag on Vogel's shoulder distinguished him from Lewis and Martinez, who wore the stars and stripes. The darkness to the east undulated and flickered in the rays of the rising sun. The storm, Vogel said in his accented English. It is closer than Houston reported. We've got time, Lewis said. Focus on the task at hand.
Oh, shit.
This EVA is all about chemical analysis. Vogel, you're the chemist, so you're in charge of what we dig up. Yeah, Vogel said. Please dig 30 centimeters and get soil samples. At least 100 grams each. Very important is 30 centimeters down. Will do, Lewis said. Stay within 100 meters of the hab, she added. Vogel said. Yes, ma'am, said Martinez. They split up. Greatly improved since the days of Apollo, Ares EVA suits allowed much more freedom of motion. Digging, bending over, and bagging samples were trivial tasks. After a time, Lewis asked, How many samples do you need? 7 each, perhaps? That's fine, Lewis confirmed. I've got 4 so far. 5 here, Martinez said. Of course, we can't expect the Navy to keep up with the Air Force, now can we? So that's how you want to play it? Lewis said. Just call him as I see him, Commander. Johansson here. The Cyclops' voice came over the radio. Houston's upgraded the storm to severe. It's going to be here in 15 minutes. Back to base, Lewis said. The HAB shook in the roaring wind as the astronauts huddled in the center. All 6 of them now wore their flight spacesuits in case they had to scramble for an emergency takeoff in the MAV. Johansson watched her laptop while the rest watched her. Sustained winds over 100 kilometers per hour now, she said, gusting to 125. Jesus, we're going to end up in Oz, Watney said. What's the abort wind speed? Technically 150 kilometers per hour, Martinez said. Any more than that, and the MAV's in danger of tipping. Any predictions on the storm track? Lewis asked. This is the edge of it, Johansson said, staring at her screen. It's going to get worse before it gets better. The HAB canvas rippled under the brutal assault as the internal supports bent and shivered with each gust. The cacophony grew louder by the minute. All right, Lewis said. Prep for abort. We'll go to the MAV and hope for the best. If the wind gets too high, we'll launch. Leaving the HAB in pairs, they grouped up outside Airlock 1. The driving wind and sand battered them, but they were able to stay on their feet. Visibility is almost zero, Lewis said. If you get lost, home in on my suit's telemetry. The wind's going to be rougher away from the HAB, so be ready. Pressing through the gale, they stumbled toward the MAV, with Lewis and Beck in the lead and Watney and Johansson bringing up the rear. Hey, Watney panted. Maybe we could shore up the MAV, make tipping less likely. How? Lewis huffed. We could use cables from the solar farm as guy lines. He wheezed for a few moments, then continued. The rovers could be anchors. The trick would be getting the line around the... Flying wreckage slammed Watney, carrying him off into the wind. Watney! Johansson exclaimed. What happened? Lewis said. Something hit him, Johansson reported. Watney, report, Lewis said. No reply. Watney reports, Lewis repeated. Again, she was met with silence. He's offline, Johansson reported. I don't know where he is. Commander, Beck said. Before we lost telemetry, his decompression alarm went off. Shit, Lewis exclaimed. Johansson, where did you last see him? He was right in front of me and then he was gone, she said. He flew off, due west. Okay, Lewis said. Martinez, get to the MAV and prep for launch. Everyone else, home in on Johansson. Dr. Beck, Vogel said as he stumbled through the storm. How long could a person survive decompression? Less than a minute, Beck said, emotion choking his voice. I can't see anything, Johansson said as the crew crowded around her. Line up and walk west, Lewis commanded. Small steps. He's probably prone. We don't want to step over him. Staying inside of one another, they trudged through the chaos. Martinez fell into the MAV airlock and forced it closed against the wind. Once it pressurized, he quickly doffed his suit. Having climbed the ladder to the crew compartment, he slid into the pilot's couch and booted the system. Grabbing the emergency launch checklist with one hand, he flipped switches rapidly with the other. One by one, the systems reported flight-ready status. As they came online, he noted one in particular. Commander, he radioed, the MAV's got a 7-degree tilt. It'll tip at 12.3. Copy that, Lewis said. Johansson, Beck said, looking at his arm computer. Watney's biomonitor sent something before going offline. My computer just says bad packet. I have it too, Johansson said. It didn't finish transmitting. Some data's missing and there's no checksum. Give me a sec. Commander, Martinez said. Message from Houston. We're officially scrubbed. The storm's definitely going to be too rough. Copy, Lewis said. They sent that 4.5 minutes ago, Martinez continued, while looking at satellite data from 9 minutes ago. Understood, Lewis said. Continue prepping for launch. Copy, Martinez said. Beck, Johansson said. I have the raw packet. It's plain text. BP 0, PR 0, TP 36.2. That's as far as it got. Copy, Beck said morosely. Blood pressure 0, pulse rate 0, temperature normal. The channel fell silent for some time. They continued pressing forward, shuffling through the sandstorm, hoping for a miracle. Temperature normal? Lewis said, a hint of hope in her voice. It takes a while for the... Beck stammered. It takes a while to cool. Commander, Martinez said, Tilting at 10.5 degrees now with gusts pushing it to 11. Copy, Lewis said. Are you at pilot release? Affirmative, Martinez replied. I can launch any time. If it tips, can you launch before it falls completely over? Martinez said, not expecting the question. Yes, ma'am. I'd take manual control and go full throttle. Then I'd nose up and return to pre-programmed descent. Copy that, Lewis said. Everyone home in on Martinez's suit. That'll get you to the MAV airlock. Get in and prep for launch. What about you, Commander? Beck asked. I'm searching a little more. Get moving. And Martinez, if you start to tip, launch. You really think I'll leave you behind? Martinez said. I just ordered you to, Lewis replied. You three, get to the ship. They reluctantly obeyed Lewis's order and made their way toward the MAV. The punishing wind fought them every step of the way. Unable to see the ground, Lewis shuffled forward. Remembering something, she reached to her back and got a pair of rock drill bits. She had added the 1-meter bits to her equipment that morning, anticipating geological sampling later in the day. Holding one in each hand, she dragged them along the ground as she walked. After 20 meters, she turned around and walked the opposite direction. Walking a straight line proved to be impossible. Not only did she lack visual references, the endless wind pushed her off course. The sheer volume of attacking sand buried her feet with each step. Grunting, she pressed on. Beck, Johansson, and Vogel squeezed into the MAV airlock. Designed for 2, it could be used by 3 in emergencies. As it equalized, Lewis's voice came over the radio. Johansson, she said, would the rover IR camera do any good? Negative, Johansson replied. IR can't get through sand any better than visible light. What's she thinking? Beck asked after removing his helmet. She's a geologist. She knows IR can't get through a sandstorm. She's grasping, Vogel said, opening the inner door. We must get to the couches. Please hurry. I don't feel good about this, Beck said. Neither do I, Doctor, said Vogel, climbing the ladder. But the commander has given us orders. Insubordination will not help. Commander, Martinez radioed. We're tilting 11.6 degrees. One good gust and we're tipping. What about the proximity radar? Lewis said. Could it detect Watney's suit? No way, Martinez said. It's made to see Hermes in orbit, not the metal in a single spacesuit. Give it a try, Lewis said. Commander, said Beck, putting on a headset as he slid into his acceleration couch. I know you don't want to hear this, but Watney... Mark's dead. Copy, Lewis said. Martinez, try the radar. Roger, Martinez radioed. He brought the radar online and waited for it to complete a self-check. Glaring at Beck, he said, What's the matter with you? My friend just died, Beck answered, and I don't want my commander to die too. Martinez gave him a stern look. Turning his attention back to the radar, he radioed. Negative contact on proximity radar. Nothing? Lewis asked. I can barely see the hab, he replied. The sandstorm's fucking things up. Even if it wasn't, there's not enough metal. Shit! Strap in, he yelled to the crew. We're tipping! The MAV creaked as it tilted faster and faster. 13 degrees, Johansson called out from her couch. Buckling his restraints, Vogel said, We are far past balance. We will not rock back. We can't leave her, Beck yelled. Let it tip, we'll fix it. 32 metric tons including fuel, Martinez said, his hands flying over the controls. If it hits the ground, it'll do structural damage to the tanks, frame, and probably the second stage engine. We'd never be able to fix it. You can't abandon her, Beck said. You can't. I've got one trick. If that doesn't work, I'm following her orders. Bringing the orbital maneuvering system online, he fired a sustained burn from the nose cone array. The small thrusters fought against the lumbering mass of the slowly tilting spacecraft. You're firing the OMS? Vogel asked. I don't know if it'll work. We're not tipping very fast, Martinez said. I think it's slowing down. The aerodynamic cabs will have automatically ejected, Vogel said. It will be a bumpy ascent with 3 holes in the side of the ship. Thanks for the tip, Martinez said, maintaining the burn and watching the tilt readout. Come on. Still 13 degrees, Johansson reported. What's going on up there? Lewis radioed. You went quiet. Respond. Stand by, Martinez replied. 12.9 degrees, Johansson said. It is working, Vogel said. For now, Martinez said. I don't know if maneuvering fuel will last. 12.8 now, Johansson supplied. OMS fuel at 60%, Beck said. How much do you need to dock with Hermes? 10% if I don't fuck anything up, Martinez said, adjusting the thrust angle. 12.6, Johansson said. We're tipping back. Or the wind died down a little, Beck postulated. Fuel at 45%. There is danger of damage to the vents, Vogel cautioned. The OMS was not made for prolonged thrusts. I know, Martinez said. I can dock without nose vents if I have to. Almost there, Johansson said. Okay, we're under 12.3. OMS cut off, Martinez announced, terminating the burn. Still tipping back, Johansson said. 11.6. 11.5. Holding at 11.5. OMS fuel at 22%, Beck said. Yeah, I see that, Martinez replied. It'll be enough. Commander, Beck radioed. You need to get to the ship now. Agreed, Martinez radioed. He's gone, ma'am. Watney's gone. The four crewmates awaited their commander's response. Copy, she finally replied. On my way. They lay in silence, strapped to their couches and ready for launch. Beck looked at Watney's empty couch and saw Vogel doing the same. Martinez ran a self-check on the nose cone OMS thrusters. They were no longer safe for use. He noted the malfunction in his log. The airlock cycled. After removing her suit, Lewis made her way to the flight cabin. She wordlessly strapped into her couch, her face a frozen mask. Only Martinez dared speak. Still at pilot release, he said quietly. Ready for launch? Lewis closed her eyes and nodded. I'm sorry, Commander, Martinez said. You need to verbally launch, she said. Yes, ma'am, he replied, activating the sequence. The retaining clamps ejected from the launch gantry, falling to the ground. Seconds later, pre-ignition pyros fired, igniting the main engines, and the MAV lurched upward. The ship slowly gained speed. As it did, wind shear blew it laterally off course. Sensing the problem, the ascent software angled the ship into the wind to counteract it. As fuel was consumed, the ship got lighter and the acceleration more pronounced. Rising at this exponential rate, the craft quickly reached maximum acceleration, a limit defined not by the ship's power but by the delicate human bodies inside. As the ship soared, the open OMS ports took their toll. The crew rocked in their couches as the craft shook violently. Martinez and the ascent software kept it trim, though it was a constant battle. The turbulence tapered off and eventually fell to nothing as the atmosphere became thinner and thinner. Suddenly, all force stopped. The first stage had been completed. The crew experienced weightlessness for several seconds, then were pressed back into their couches as the next stage began. Outside, the now empty first stage fell away, eventually to crash on some unknown area of the planet below. The second stage pushed the ship ever higher and into low orbit. Lasting less time than the massive first stage and thrusting much more smoothly, it seemed almost like an afterthought. Abruptly, the engine stopped, and an oppressive calm replaced the previous cacophony. Main engine shut down, Martinez said. Ascent time, 8 minutes, 14 seconds. On course for Hermes intercept. Normally, an incident-free launch would be cause for celebration. This one earned only silence, broken by Johansson's gentle sobbing. 4 months later. Beck tried not to think about the painful reason he was doing zero-G plant growth experiments. He noted the size and shape of the fern leaves, took photos, and made notes. Having completed his science schedule for the day, he checked his watch. Perfect timing. The data dump would be completing soon. He floated past the reactor to the Semicone A ladder. Traveling feet first along the ladder, he soon had to grip it in earnest as the centripetal force of the rotating ship took hold. By the time he reached Semicone A, he was at 0.4 G. No mere luxury, the centripetal gravity of Hermes kept them fit. Without it, they would have spent their first week on Mars barely able to walk. Zero-G exercise regimens could keep the heart and bones healthy. but none had been devised that would give them full function from Sol 1. Because the ship was already designed for it, they used the system on the return trip as well. Johansson sat at her station. Lewis sat in the adjacent seat while Vogel and Martinez hovered nearby. The data dump carried emails and videos from home. It was the high point of the day. "Is it here yet?" Beck asked as he entered the bridge. "Almost," Johansson said. 98%. "You're looking cheerful, Martinez," Beck said. "My son turned 3 yesterday," he beamed. "Should be some pics of the party. How about you?" "Nothing special," Beck said. "Peer reviews of a paper I wrote a few years back." "Complete," Johansson said. "All the personal emails are dispatched to your laptops. Also, there's a telemetry update for Vogel and a system update for me." "Huh. There's a voice message addressed to the whole crew." She looked over her shoulder to Lewis. Lewis shrugged. "Play it." Johansson opened the message, then sat back. "Hermes, this is Mitch Henderson," the message began. "Henderson," Martinez said, puzzled. "Talking directly to us without Capcom?" Lewis held her hand up to signal for silence. "I have some news," Mitch's voice continued. "There's no subtle way to put this. Mark Watney's still alive." Johansson gasped. "Whoa," Beck stammered. Vogel stood with his mouth agape as a shocked expression swept across his face. Martinez looked to Lewis. She leaned forward and pinched her chin. "I know that's a surprise," Mitch continued, "and I know you'll have a lot of questions. We're going to answer those questions, but for now I'll just give you the basics. He's alive and healthy. We found out 2 months ago and decided not to tell you. We even censored personal messages. I was strongly against all that. We're telling you now because we finally have communication with him and a viable rescue plan. It boils down to Ares 4 picking him up with a modified MDV. We'll get you a full write-up of what happened, but it's definitely not your fault. Mark stresses that every time it comes up. It was just bad luck. Take some time to absorb this. Your science schedules are cleared for tomorrow. Send all the questions you want and we'll answer them. Henderson out." The message's end brought stunned silence to the bridge.
He's alive?
"He's alive," Martinez said, then smiled. Vogel nodded excitedly. "He lives." Johansson stared at her screen in wide-eyed disbelief. "Holy shit," Beck laughed.
Holy shit, this motherfucker
"Holy shit,
is down
Commander.
there growing potatoes.
He's alive." "I left him behind," Lewis said quietly. The celebrations ceased immediately as the crew saw their commander's expression.
That's why they didn't want to tell him.
Beck began.
No.
"We all left together. You followed orders," Lewis interrupted. "I left him behind.
No.
In a barren, unreachable, God-forsaken wasteland."
See?
Beck looked to Martinez pleadingly. Martinez opened his mouth, but could find no words to say. Lewis trudged off the bridge. Chapter 13. The employees of Deo Plastics worked double shifts to finish the HAB canvas for Ares 3. There was talk of triple shifts if NASA increased the order again. No one minded. The overtime pay was spectacular. The funding was limitless.
Overtime pay was spectacular.
Woven
Making
carbon
millions
thread
off
ran
this shit.
slowly through the press, which sandwiched it between polymer sheets. The completed material was folded 4 times and glued together. The resulting thick sheet was then coated with soft resin and taken to the hot room to set. Log entry, Sol 114. Now that NASA can talk to me, they won't shut the hell up. They want constant updates on every HAB system, and they've got a room full of people trying to micromanage my crops. It's awesome to have a bunch of dipshits on Earth telling me, a botanist, how to grow plants. I mostly ignore them. I don't want to come off as arrogant here, but I'm the best botanist on the planet. One big bonus, email. Just like the days back on Hermes, I get data dumps. Of course, they relay email from friends and family, but NASA also sends along choice messages from the public. I've gotten email from rock stars, athletes, actors and actresses, and even the president. One of them was from my alma mater, the University of Chicago. They say once you grow crops somewhere, you have officially colonized it. So technically, I colonized Mars. In your face, Neil Armstrong.
Damn.
But my favorite email was the one from my mother. It's exactly what you'd expect. Thank God you're alive, stay strong, don't die, your father says hello, etc. I read it 50 times in a row. Hey, don't get me wrong, I'm not a mama's boy or anything. I'm a full-grown man who only occasionally wears diapers. You have to in an EVA suit. It's totally manly and normal for me to cling to a letter from my mom. It's not like I'm some homesick kid at camp, right? Admittedly, I have to schlep to the rover 5 times a day to check email. They can get a message from Earth to Mars, but they can't get it another 10 meters to the hab. But hey, I can't bitch. My odds of living through this are way higher now. Last I'd heard, they'd solved the weight problem on Ares 4's MDV. Once it lands here, they'll ditch the heat shield, all the life support stuff, and a bunch of empty fuel tanks. Then they can take the 7 of us, Ares 4's crew plus me, all the way to Schiaparelli. They're already working on my duties for the surface ops. How cool is that? In other news, I'm learning Morse code. Why? Because it's our backup communications system. NASA figured a decades-old probe isn't ideal as the sole means of communication. If Pathfinder craps out, I'll spell messages with rocks, which NASA will see with satellites. They can't reply, but at least we'd have one-way communication. Why Morse code? Because making dots and dashes with rocks is a lot easier than making letters. It's a shitty way to communicate. Hopefully it won't come up. All chemical reactions complete. The sheet was sterilized and moved to a clean room. There, a worker cut a strip off the edge, divided it into squares, and put each through a series of rigorous tests. Having passed inspection, the sheet was then cut to shape. The edges were folded over, sewn, and resealed with resin. A man with a clipboard made final inspections, independently verifying the measurements, then approved it for use. Log entry, Sol 115. The meddling botanists have grudgingly admitted I did a good job. They agree I'll have enough food to last until Sol 900. Bearing that in mind, NASA has fleshed out the mission details of the supply probe. At first, they were working on a desperate plan to get a probe here before Sol 400, but I bought another 500 sols of life with my potato farm, so they have more time to work on it. They'll launch next year during the Hohmann transfer window, and it'll take almost 9 months to get here. It should arrive around Sol 856. It'll have plenty of food, a spare oxygenator, water reclaimer, and comm system. 3 comm systems, actually. I guess they aren't taking any chances, what with my habit of being nearby when radios break. Got my first email from Hermes today. NASA's been limiting direct contact. I guess they're afraid I'll say something like, "You abandoned me on Mars, you assholes!" I know the crew was surprised to hear from the ghost of Mars missions past, but come on. I wish NASA was less of a nanny sometimes. Anyway, they finally let one email through from the commander. Watney, obviously we're very happy to hear you survived. As the person responsible for your situation, I wish there was more I could do to directly help. But it looks like NASA has a good rescue plan. I'm sure you'll continue to show your incredible resourcefulness and get through this. Looking forward to buying you a beer back on Earth. Lewis. My reply. Commander, pure bad luck is responsible for my situation, not you. You made the right call and saved everyone else. I know it must have been a tough decision, but any analysis of that day will show it was the right one. Get everyone else home, and I'll be happy. I will take you up on that beer, though. Watney. The employees carefully folded the sheet and placed it in an argon-filled airtight shipping container. The man with the clipboard placed a sticker on the package. Project Ares 3, HAB canvas, sheet AL-102. The package was placed on a charter plane and flown to Edwards Air Force Base in California. It flew abnormally high at great cost of fuel to ensure a smoother flight. Upon arrival, the package was carefully transported by special convoy to Pasadena. Once there, it was moved to the JPL spacecraft assembly facility. Over the next 5 weeks, engineers in white bodysuits assembled pre-supply 309. It contained AL-102, as well as 12 other HAB canvas packages. Log entry, Sol 116. It's almost time for the second harvest. Yep. I wish I had a straw hat and some suspenders. My reseed of the potatoes went well. I'm beginning to see that crops on Mars are extremely prolific, thanks to the billions of dollars worth of life support equipment around me. I now have 400 healthy potato plants, each one making lots of calorie-filled taters for my dining enjoyment. In just 10 days, they'll be ripe. And this time I'm not replanting them as seed. This is my food supply, all natural, organic, Martian-grown potatoes. Don't hear that every day, do you? You may be wondering how I'll store them. I can't just pile them up. Most of them would go bad before I got around to eating them. So instead, I'll do something that wouldn't work at all on Earth. Throw them outside. Most of the water will be sucked out by the near vacuum. What's left will freeze solid. Any bacteria planning to rot my taters will die screaming. In other news, I got an email from Venkat Kapoor. Mark, some answers to your earlier questions. No, we will not tell our botany team to go fuck themselves. I understand you've been on your own for a long time, but we're in the loop now, and it's best if you listen to what we have to say. The Cubs finished the season at the bottom of the NL Central. The data transfer rate just isn't good enough for the size of music files, even in compressed formats. So your request for anything, oh God, anything but disco is denied. Enjoy your boogie fever. Also, an uncomfortable side note. NASA is putting together a committee. They want to see if there were any avoidable mistakes that led you to being stranded. Just a heads up. They may have questions for you later on. Keep us posted on your activities. Kapoor. My reply. Venkat, tell the investigation committee they'll have to do their witch hunt without me. And when they inevitably blame Commander Lewis, be advised I'll publicly refute it. I'm sure the rest of the crew will do the same. Also, please tell them that each and every one of their mothers is a prostitute. Watney. P.S. They're sisters, too.
Damn.
The pre-supply probes for Ares 3 launched on 14 consecutive days during the Hohmann transfer window. Pre-supply 309 was launched third. The 251-day trip to Mars was uneventful, needing only 2 minor course adjustments. After several aerobraking maneuvers to slow down, it made its final descent toward Acidalia Planitia. First, it endured re-entry via a heat shield. Later, it released a parachute and detached the now expended shield. Once its onboard radar detected it was 30 meters from the ground, it cut loose the parachute and inflated balloons all around its hull. It fell unceremoniously to the surface, bouncing and rolling until it finally came to rest. Deflating its balloons, the onboard computer reported the successful landing back to Earth. Then it waited 23 months. Log entry, Sol 117. The water reclaimer is acting up. 6 people will go through 18 liters of water per day, so it's made to process 20. But lately it hasn't been keeping up. It's doing 10, tops. Do I generate 10 liters of water per day? No, I'm not the urinating champion of all time. It's the crops. The humidity inside the HAB is a lot higher than it was designed for, so the water reclaimer is constantly filtering it out of the air. I'm not worried about it. If need be, I can piss directly onto the plants. The plants will take their share of water, and the rest will condense on the walls. I could make something to collect the condensation, I'm sure. Thing is, the water can't go anywhere. It's a closed system. Okay, technically I'm lying. The plants aren't entirely water neutral. They strip the hydrogen from some of it, releasing the oxygen, and use it to make the complex hydrocarbons that are the plant itself. But it's a very small loss, and I made like 600 liters of water from MDV fuel. I could take baths and still have plenty left over. NASA, however, is absolutely shitting itself. They see the water reclaimer as a critical survival element. There's no backup, and they think I'll die instantly without it. To them, equipment failure is terrifying. To me, it's Tuesday. So instead of preparing for my harvest, I have to make extra trips to and from the rover to answer their questions. Each new message instructs me to try some new solution and report the results back. So far as we've worked out, it's not the electronics, refrigeration system, instrumentation, or temperature. I'm sure it'll turn out to be a little hole somewhere. Then NASA will have 4 hours of meetings before telling me to cover it with duct tape. Lewis and Beck opened Pre-Supply 309. Working as best they could in their bulky EVA suits, they removed the various portions of HAB canvas and laid them on the ground. 3 entire pre-supply probes were dedicated to the HAB. Following a procedure they had practiced hundreds of times, they efficiently assembled the pieces. Special seal strips between the patches ensured airtight mating. After erecting the main structure of the HAB, they assembled the 3 airlocks. Sheet AL-102 had a hole perfectly sized for airlock 1. Beck stretched the sheet tight to the seal strips on the airlock's exterior. Once all airlocks were in place, Lewis flooded the HAB with air, and AL-102 felt pressure for the first time. Lewis and Beck waited an hour. No pressure was lost. The setup had been perfect. Log entry, Sol 118. My conversation with NASA about the water reclaimer was boring and riddled with technical details, so I'll paraphrase it for you. Me. This is obviously a clog. How about I take it apart and check the internal tubing? NASA. After 5 hours of deliberation. No, you'll fuck it up and die. So I took it apart. Yeah, I know NASA has a lot of ultra-smart people, and I should really do what they say. And I'm being too adversarial, considering they spend all day working on how to save my life. I just get sick of being told how to wipe my ass. Independence was one of the qualities they looked for when choosing Ares astronauts. It's a 13-month mission, most of it spent many light minutes away from Earth. They wanted people who would act on their own initiative. If Commander Lewis were here, I'd do whatever she said, no problem. But a committee of faceless bureaucrats back on Earth? Sorry. I'm just having a tough time with it. I was really careful. I labeled every piece as I dismantled it and laid everything out on a table. I had the schematics in the computer, so nothing was a surprise. And just as I'd suspected, there was a clogged tube. The water reclaimer was designed to purify urine and strain humidity out of the air. You exhale almost as much water as you piss. I've mixed my water with soil, making it mineral water. The minerals built up in the water reclaimer. I cleaned out the tubing and put it all back together. It completely solved the problem. I'll have to do it again someday, but not for 100 sols or so. No big deal. I told NASA what I did. Our paraphrased conversation was, me. I took it apart, found the problem, and fixed it. NASA. Dick. AL-102 shuddered in the brutal storm. Withstanding forces far greater than it was designed for, it rippled violently against the airlock seal strip. Other sections of canvas undulated along their seal strips together, acting as a single sheet. But AL-102 had no such luxury. The airlock barely moved, leaving AL-102 to take the full force of the tempest. The layers of plastic, constantly bending, heated the resin from pure friction. The new, more yielding environment allowed the carbon fibers to separate. AL-102 stretched. Not much, only 4 millimeters. But the carbon fibers, usually 500 microns apart, now had a gap 8 times that width in their midst. After the storm abated, the lone remaining astronaut performed a full inspection of the HAB. But he didn't notice anything amiss. The weak part of canvas was concealed by a seal strip. Designed for a mission of 31 sols, AL-102 continued well past its planned expiration. Sol after sol went by, with the lone astronaut traveling in and out of the HAB almost daily. Airlock 1 was closest to the rover charging station, so the astronaut preferred it to the other 2. When pressurized, the airlock expanded slightly. When depressurized, it shrunk. Every time the astronaut used the airlock, the strain on AL-102 relaxed, then tightened anew. Pulling, stressing, weakening, stretching. Log entry, Sol 119. I woke up last night to the hab shaking. The medium-grade sandstorm ended as suddenly as it began. It was only a Category 3 storm with 50 kilometers per hour winds. Nothing to worry about. Still, it's a bit disconcerting to hear howling winds when you're used to utter silence. I'm worried about Pathfinder. If the sandstorm damaged it, I'll have lost my connection to NASA. Logically, I shouldn't worry. The thing's been on the surface for decades. A little gale won't do any harm. When I head outside, I'll confirm Pathfinder's still functional before moving on to the sweaty, annoying work of the day. Yes, with each sandstorm comes the inevitable cleaning of the solar cells, a time-honored tradition among hardy Martians such as myself. It reminds me of growing up in Chicago and having to shovel snow. I'll give my dad credit. He never claimed it was to build character or teach me the value of hard work. Snowblowers are expensive, he used to say. You're free. Once I tried to appeal to my mom. Don't be such a wuss, she suggested. In other news, it's 7 sols till the harvest, and I still haven't prepared. For starters, I need to make a hoe. Also, I need to make an outdoor shed for the potatoes. I can't just pile them up outside. The next major storm would cause the Great Martian Potato Migration. Anyway, all that will have to wait. I've got a full day today. Migration. After cleaning the solar cells, I have to check the whole solar array to make sure the storm didn't hurt it. Then I'll need to do the same for the rover. I better get started. Airlock 1 slowly depressurized to 0.006 atmospheres. Watney, wearing an EVA suit, stood inside it waiting for the cycle to complete.
Potatoes and
he had done it literally hundreds of times. Any apprehension he may have had on Sol 1 was long gone. Now it was merely a boring chore before exiting to the surface. As the depressurization continued, the hab's atmosphere compressed the airlock, and AL-102 stretched for the last time. On Sol 119, the hab breached the airlock, and on Sol 106 atmospheres. Watney, wearing an EVA suit, stood inside it waiting for the cycle to complete. He had done it literally hundreds of times. Any apprehension he may have had on Sol 1 was long gone. Now it was merely a boring chore before exiting to the surface. As the depressurization continued, the hab's atmosphere compressed the airlock, and AL-102 stretched for the last time. On Sol 119, the hab breached. The initial tear was less than 1 millimeter. The perpendicular carbon fibers should have prevented the rip from growing, but countless abuses had stretched the vertical fibers apart and weakened the horizontal ones beyond use. The full force of the hab's atmosphere rushed through the breach. Within a tenth of a second, the rip was a meter long, running parallel to the seal strip. It propagated all the way around until it met its starting point. The airlock was no longer attached to the hab. The unopposed pressure launched the airlock like a cannonball as the hab's atmosphere explosively escaped through the breach. Inside, the surprised Watney slammed against the airlock's back door with the force of the expulsion. The airlock flew 40 meters before hitting the ground. Watney, barely recovered from the earlier shock, now endured another as he hit the front door face first. His faceplate took the brunt of the blow, the safety glass shattering into hundreds of small cubes. His head slammed against the inside of the helmet, knocking him senseless. The airlock tumbled across the surface for a further 15 meters. The heavy padding of Watney's suit saved him from many broken bones. He tried to make sense of the situation, but he was barely conscious. Finally done tumbling, the airlock rested on its side amid a cloud of dust. Watney, on his back, stared blankly upward through the hole in his shattered faceplate. A gash in his forehead trickled blood down his face. Regaining some of his wits, he got his bearings. Turning his head to the side, he looked through the back door's window. The collapsed hab rippled in the distance, a junkyard of debris strewn across the landscape in front of it. Then a hissing sound reached his ears. Listening carefully, he realized it was not coming from his suit. Somewhere in the phone booth-sized airlock, a small breach was letting air escape. He listened intently to the hiss, then he touched his broken faceplate. Then he looked out the window again. "You fucking kidding me?" he said. Chapter 14. Audio log transcript. Sol 119. You know what? Fuck this. Fuck this airlock, fuck that hab, and fuck this whole planet. Seriously, this is it. I've had it. I've got a few minutes before I run out of air, and I'll be damned if I spend them playing Mars's little game. I'm so goddamn sick of it I could puke. All I have to do is sit here. The air will leak out, and I'll die. I'll be done. No more getting my hopes up, no more self-delusion, and no more problem solving. I've fucking had it. Audio log transcript. Sol 119. 2. Sigh. Okay. I've had my tantrum, and now I have to figure out how to stay alive. Again. Okay, let's see what I can do here. I'm in the airlock. I can see the hab out the window. It's a good 50 meters away. Normally, the airlock is attached to the hab, so that's a problem. The airlock's on its side, and I can hear a steady hiss. So either it's leaking or there are snakes in here. Either way, I'm in trouble. Also, during the... whatever the fuck happened, I got bounced around like a pinball and smashed my faceplate. Air is notoriously uncooperative when it comes to giant gaping holes in your EVA suit. Looks like the hab is completely deflated and collapsed. So even if I had a functional EVA suit to leave the airlock with, I wouldn't have anywhere to go. So that sucks. I gotta think for a minute. And I have to get out of this EVA suit. It's bulky, and the airlock is cramped. Besides, it's not like it's doing me any good. Audio log transcript. Sol 119. 3. Things aren't as bad as they seem. I'm still fucked, mind you, just not as deeply. Not sure what happened to the hab, but the rover's probably fine. It's not ideal, but at least it's not a leaky phone booth. I have a patch kit on my EVA suit, of course, the same kind that saved my life back on Sol 6. But don't get excited. It won't do the suit any good. The patch kit is a cone-shaped valve with super sticky resin on the wide end. It's just too small to deal with a hole larger than 8 centimeters. But really, if you have a 9-centimeter hole, you're going to be dead way before you could whip out the kit. Still, it's an asset, and maybe I can use it to stop the airlock leak. And that's my top priority right now. It's a small leak. With the faceplate gone, the EVA suit is effectively managing the whole airlock. It's been adding air to make up for the missing pressure, but it'll run out eventually. I need to find the leak. I think it's near my feet, judging by the sound. Now that I'm out of the suit, I can turn around and get a look. I don't see anything. I can hear it, but it's down here somewhere, but I don't know where. I can only think of one way to find it. Start a fire. Yeah, I know. A lot of my ideas involve setting something on fire. And yes, deliberately starting a fire in a tiny enclosed space is usually a terrible idea. But I need the smoke, just a little wisp of it. As usual, I'm working with stuff that was deliberately designed not to burn. But no amount of careful design by NASA can get around a determined arsonist with a tank of pure oxygen. Unfortunately, the EVA suit is made entirely of non-flammable materials. So is the airlock. My clothes are fireproof as well, even the thread. I was originally planning to check the solar array, doing repairs as needed after last night's storm, so I have my toolbox with me. But looking through it, I see it's all metal or non-flammable plastic. I just realized I do have something flammable. My own hair. It'll have to do. There's a sharp knife in the toolkit. I'll shave some arm hairs off into a little pile. Next step, oxygen. I don't have anything so refined as pure oxygen flow. All I can do is muck with the EVA suit controls to increase oxygen percentage in the whole airlock. I figure bumping it to 40% will do. All I need now is a spark. The EVA suit has electronics, but it runs on very low voltage. I don't think I could get an arc with it. Besides, I don't want to mess with the suit. I need it working to get from the airlock to the rover. The airlock itself has electronics, but it ran on hab power. I guess NASA never considered what would happen if it was launched 50 meters. Lazy bums. Plastic might not burn, but anyone who's played with a balloon knows it's great at building up static charge. Once I do that, I should be able to make a spark just by touching a metal tool. Fun fact, this is exactly how the Apollo 1 crew died. Wish me luck. Audio log transcript. Sol 119. 4. I'm in a box full of burning hair smell. It's not a good smell. On my first try, the fire lit, but the smoke just drifted randomly around. My own breathing was screwing it up, so I held my breath and tried again. My second try, the EVA suit threw everything off. There's a gentle flow of air coming out of the faceplate as the suit constantly replaces the missing air, so I shut the suit down, held my breath, and tried again. I had to be quick. The pressure was dropping. My third try, the quick arm movements I used to set the fire messed everything up. Just moving around makes enough turbulence to send the smoke everywhere. The fourth time, I kept the suit turned off, held my breath, and when the time came to light the fire, I did it very slowly. Then I watched as the little wisp of smoke drifted toward the floor of the airlock, disappearing through a hairline fracture. I have you now, little leak. I gasped for air and turned the EVA suit back on. The pressure had dropped to 0.9 atmospheres during my little experiment, but there was plenty of oxygen in the air for me and my hair fire to breathe. The suit quickly got things back to normal. Looking at the fracture, I see that it's pretty tiny. It would be a cinch to seal it with the suit's patch kit, but now that I think about it, that's a bad idea. I'll need to do some kind of repair to the faceplate. I don't know how just yet, but the patch kit and its pressure-resistant resin are probably really important, and I can't do it bit by bit either. Once I break the seal on the patch kit, the binary components of the resin mix, and I have 60 seconds before it hardens. I can't just take a little to fix the airlock. Given time, I might be able to come up with a plan for the faceplate. Then I could take a few seconds during that plan to scrape resin over the airlock fracture. But I don't have time. I'm down to 40% of my N2 tank. I need to seal that fracture now, and I need to do it without using the patch kit. First idea, little Dutch boy. I'm licking my palm and placing it over the crack. Okay, I can't quite make a perfect seal, so there's airflow. Getting colder now. Getting pretty uncomfortable. Okay, fuck this. On to idea number 2. Tape. I have duct tape in my toolbox. Let's slap some on and see if it slows the flow. I wonder how long it will last before the pressure rips it. Putting it on now. There we go. Still holding. Let me check the suit. Readouts say the pressure's stable. Looks like the duct tape made a good seal. Let's see if it holds. Audio log transcript. Sol 119. 5.
Motherfucking duct tape.
It's been 15 minutes and the tape is still holding. Looks like that problem is solved. Sort of anticlimactic, really. I was already working out how to cover the breach with ice. I have 2 liters of water in the EVA suit's hamster feeder. I could have shut off the suit's heating systems and let the airlock cool to freezing. Then well, whatever. Could have done it with ice. I'm just saying. All right, on to my next problem.
Damn.
How do I fix the EVA suit? Duct tape might seal a hairline crack, but it can't hold an atmosphere of pressure against the sides of my broken faceplate. The patch kit is too small, but still useful. I can spread the resin around the edge of where the faceplate was, then stick something on to cover the hole. Problem is, what do I use to cover the hole? Something that can stand up to a lot of pressure. Looking around, the only thing I see that can hold an atmosphere is the EVA suit itself. There's plenty of material to work with, and I can even cut it. Remember when I was cutting hab canvas into strips? Those same shears are right here in my toolkit. Cutting a chunk out of my EVA suit leaves it with another hole, but a hole I can control the shape and location of. Yeah, I think I see a solution here. I'm going to cut off my arm. Well, no, not my arm. The EVA suit's arm. I'll cut right below the left elbow. Then I can cut along its length, turning it into a rectangle. It'll be big enough to seal the faceplate, and it'll be held in place by the resin. Material designed to withstand atmospheric pressure? Check. Resin designed to seal a breach against that pressure? Check. And what about the gaping hole on the stumpy arm? Unlike my faceplate, the suit's material is flexible. I'll press it together and seal it with resin. I'll have to press my left arm against my side while I'm in the suit, but there'll be room. I'll be spreading the resin pretty thin, but it's literally the strongest adhesive known to man. And it doesn't have to be a perfect seal. It just has to last long enough for me to get to safety. And where will that safety be? Not a damn clue. Anyway, one problem at a time. Right now, I'm fixing the EVA suit. Audio log transcript. Sol 119. 6. Cutting the arm off the suit was easy, so was cutting along its length to make a rectangle. Those shears are strong as hell. Cleaning the glass off the faceplate took longer than I'd expected. It's unlikely it would puncture EVA suit material, but I'm not taking any chances. Besides, I don't want glass in my face when I'm wearing it. Then came the tricky part. Once I broke the seal on the patch kit, I had 60 seconds before the resin set. I scooped it off the patch kit with my fingers and quickly spread it around the rim of the faceplate. Then I took what was left and sealed the armhole. I pressed the rectangle of suit material onto the helmets with both hands while using my knee to keep pressure on the arm's seam. I held on until I had counted 120 seconds, just to be sure. It seemed to work well. The seal looked strong and the resin was rock hard. I did, however, glue my hand to the helmet. Stop laughing. In retrospect, using my fingers to spread the resin wasn't the best plan. Fortunately, my left hand was still free. After some grunting and a lot of profanities, I was able to reach the toolbox. Once I got a screwdriver, I chiseled myself free, feeling really stupid the whole time. It was a delicate process because I didn't want to flay the skin off my fingers. I had to get the screwdriver between the helmet and the resin. I freed my hand and didn't draw blood, so I call that a win. Though I'll have hardened resin on my fingers for days, just like a kid who played with crazy glue. Using the arm computer, I had the suit overpressurized to 1.2 atmospheres. The faceplate patch bowed outward, but otherwise held firm. The arm filled in, threatening to tear the new seam, but stayed in one piece. Then I watched the readouts to see how airtight things were. Answer: not very. It absolutely pissed the air out. In 60 seconds, it leaked so much it pressurized the whole airlock to 1.2 atmospheres. The suit is designed for 8 hours of use. That works out to 250 milliliters of liquid oxygen. Just to be safe, the suit has a full liter of O2 capacity, but that's only half the story. The rest of the air is nitrogen. It's just there to add pressure. When the suit leaks, that's what it backfills with. The suit has 2 liters of liquid N2 storage. Let's call the volume of the airlock 2 cubic meters. The inflated EVA suit probably takes up half of it, so it took 5 minutes to add 0.2 atmospheres to 1 cubic meter. That's 285 grams of air. Trust me on the math. The air in the tanks is around 1 gram per cubic centimeter, meaning I just lost 285 milliliters. The 3 tanks combined had 3,000 milliliters to start with. A lot of that was used to maintain pressure while the airlock was leaking. Also, my breathing turned some oxygen into carbon dioxide, which was captured by the suit's CO2 filters. Checking the readouts, I see that I have 410 milliliters of oxygen, 738 milliliters of nitrogen. Together, they make almost 1,150 milliliters to work with. That, divided by 285 milliliters lost per minute. Once I'm out of the airlock, this EVA suit will only last 4 minutes. Fuck. Audio log transcript, Sol 119. 7. Okay, I've been thinking some more. What good is going to the rover? Might just be trapped there instead. The extra room would be nice, but I'd still die eventually. No water reclaimer, no oxygenator, no food. Take your pick. All of those problems are fatal. I need to fix the hab. I know what to do. We practiced it in training, but it'll take a long time. I'll have to scrounge around in the now collapsed canvas to get the spare material for patching. Then I have to find the breech and seal strip a patch in place. But it'll take hours to repair, and my EVA suit is useless. I'll need another suit. Martinez used to be in the rover. I hauled it all the way to the Pathfinder site and back just in case I needed a spare. But when I returned, I put it back in the hab. Damn it. All right, so I'll need to get another suit before going to the rover. Which one? Johansson's is too small for me. Tiny little gal, our Johansson. Lewis's is full of water. Actually, by now it's full of slowly sublimating ice. The mangled, glued-together suit I have with me is my original one. That leaves just Martinez, Vogel, and Bex. I left Martinez's near my bunk in case I needed a suit in a hurry. Of course, after that sudden decompression, it could be anywhere. Still, it's a place to start. Next problem. I'm like 50 meters from the hab. Running in 0.4 G while wearing a bulky EVA suit isn't easy. At best, I can trundle 2 meters per second. That's a precious 25 seconds, almost an eighth of my 4 minutes. I've got to bring that down. But how? Audio log transcript. Sol 119, 8. I'll roll the damn airlock. It's basically a phone booth on its side. I did some experiments. I figured if I want it to roll, I'll need to hit the wall as hard as possible, and I have to be in the air at the time. I can't press against some other part of the airlock. The forces would cancel each other out and it wouldn't move at all. First, I tried launching myself off one wall and slamming into the other. The airlock slid a little, but that's it. Next, I tried doing a super push-up to get airborne. 0.4 G, yay! Then kicking the wall with both feet. Again, it just slid. The third time, I got it right. The trick was to plant both my feet on the ground near the wall, then launch myself to the top of the opposite wall and hit with my back. When I tried that just now, it gave me enough force and leverage to tip the airlock and roll it one face toward the hab. The airlock is 1 meter wide, so... sigh. I have to do it like 50 more times. I'm gonna have a hell of a backache after this. Audio log transcript. Sol 120. I have a hell of a backache. The subtle and refined hurl my body at the wall technique had some flaws. It worked only 1 out of every 10 tries, and it hurt a lot. I had to take breaks, stretch out, and generally convince myself to body slam the wall again and again. It took all damn night, but I made it. I'm 10 meters from the hab now. I can't get any closer because the debris from the decompression is all over the place. This isn't an all-terrain airlock. I can't roll over that shit. It was morning when the hab popped. Now it's morning again. I've been in this damn box for an entire day, but I'm leaving soon. I'm in the EVA suit now and ready to roll. All right. Okay. Once more through the plan. Use the manual valves to equalize the airlock. Get out and hurry to the hab. Wander around under the collapsed canvas. Find Martinez's suit, or Vogel's if I run into it first. Get